All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the West South Milwaukee School Board to order. Mr. Keller, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Suzette, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Deal. Here. Mr. Sikich.
Present.
Mr. Keller.
Here.
Mrs. Carr. Here. Mr. Becker.
Here.
Mr. Burns.
Present.
Mrs. Lee. Here. Mrs. Kaiser. Here. President Lee.
Here, proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the opening meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do you have any modifications to the agenda this evening?
There are no modifications.
Okay, and we'll move right into officer elections.
All right. Good evening. We have our annual officer elections, and as superintendent, I have the honor of leading the presidential election. And so at this particular time, I will entertain any nominations for the position of president.
I nominate Mr. Lee for president.
Second. It's been a nomination for Mr. Noah Lee for board president, and it's been seconded. Are there any other nominations for the position of president? Are there any other nominations for the position of president? Seeing none, at this time, I would entertain a motion to close the nominations for president at this time.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly second to close the nominations for the position of president, with Mr. Noah Lee being the sole candidate. At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to please place a vote in approval of Mr. Noah Lee as board president.
I'd like to make a motion that the secretary cast the unanimous ballot.
Okay, thank you. So is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second to have the secretary to place the lone vote and support Mr. Noah Lee. At this time, we'll move for approval. Everybody, if you're in favor, show by the proper vote of yay. If you approve.
Yeah.
Mr. Congratulations, Mr. Lee.
All right, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your board support again as we move forward this year. And so now we're going to move into, this is a slightly different process we used in the past, so bear with me as I get used to it. But I'm going to open up nominations for vice president. And I'm actually going to nominate Miss Amy Deal.
Second.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? Any other nominations for vice president? Seeing none, Ms. Deal is our only nominee for vice president, and I would look for a motion to close nominations for vice president.
So moved. Second.
Moved in second. And so our nominations are now closed for vice president. Mr. Sikich?
Move to cast the unanimous ballot for Amy.
All right, there's been a motion to cast a anonymous ballot. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, so we have a anonymous ballot, our ballot cast for Ms. Deal for vice president. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, congratulations, Ms. Deal. All right, moving forward, I'm gonna open up nominations for treasurer, and I'm gonna actually nominate Ms. Kaiser for treasurer.
Second. Second.
We have a nomination in the second. Do we have any other nominations for treasurer? Any other nominations for treasurer? Seeing none, I look for a motion to close nominations for treasurer.
So moved. Second.
Been seconded. All right. All those in favor of Ms. Kaiser for treasurer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Congratulations, Ms. Kaiser. All right, so now I'm going to open up nominations for clerk.
I'd like to nominate Jane Carr.
Second.
All right, we have a nomination and a second for Ms. Carr for clerk. Any other nominations for clerk? Any other nominations for clerk? Seeing none, look for a motion to close the nominations for clerk.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All right. We have one nominee for clerk. All those in favor of Ms. Carr for clerks, please say aye. Opposed? All right, Ms. Carr, congratulations.
Thank you.
Else I have to do to close out our board officers, or we can move forward with the superintendent's report. All right. Congratulations to our officers and look forward to working with you all as over this next year. And we'll move forward in our agenda with the superintendent's report.
All right, congratulations to our new officers. We're going to proceed with the superintendent's report. First, I want to again show our appreciation and gratitude to our teachers. Last week, we celebrated Teacher Appreciation Week. And after visiting several campuses, saw the smiles on a lot of their faces and participated also with the activities that several principals held for their staff. So it's just a great week to show love and just to love on people in general. But we do have this video we want to share, just a snippet of it if we could. That would went out.
Greetings, West Allis, West Milwaukee School District. As we celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week, I want to take a moment to express our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of our extraordinary teachers. We are beyond grateful for everything that you all do every day to lead, learn, and grow the West Way. Your dedication and passion are the cornerstone of our educational community.
To all those amazing teachers out there who work every day, giving so much effort and so much time, they're doing everything they can for us. It does not go unnoticed. Us students, we notice, and we cannot be more thankful for all the hard work you do.
My teachers have helped me grow to be better at the future and be a better person in general. And also improving in academics and taking my future farther in college and further on.
What I love about my teacher is she always explains to us in math what, if we don't understand it, she will explain this to us.
I'm so thankful for the teachers that inspired me to be my best self.
My teachers have helped me grow, helping me learn respect, helping me in multiple fields in school, and helping me focus.
I love my teacher because when we don't understand something, she gives us time to learn it, and she also is really funny.
Thank you to all the teachers for not only acting as an academic mentor, but also acting as a life coach in general. Throughout my life, I've always felt like teachers have always been there for me, taking me under their wing just to make sure that I go down the right path throughout life.
My teachers have helped me grow not only academically, but helped me understand multiple real-world problems by helping me understand and simplify them.
I love my teacher because she gives me help.
Thank you for always believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Even when I felt down, thank you for always pushing me, giving me the helpful words that I needed, giving me the extended time that I always needed, and always being lenient in me.
My teachers haven't only helped me academically, but they've helped me become a better person for my future.
What I love about my teacher is that she makes me happy, and whenever I'm mad or something, she calms me down.
To all of our educators, your unwavering commitment does not go unnoticed. Thank you for your tireless efforts, your boundless compassion, and your dedication to shaping the future leaders of tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the entire West Allis, West Milwaukee School District community, I want to say once again, thank you. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Greetings, West Allis, West.
Right. So I want to thank the communications team for putting that video together. I do know that it was a lot of pressure on me to deliver because I was told the great job these young men and young women did before I went in. And I was like, okay, I don't want to see their videos because I don't want them to walk through way too high. But those kids did an outstanding job in their videos. And so I'm so grateful for them and allowing us to, the parents and teachers allowing them to participate. I want to also send a belated Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there. I know that this day does not go unnoticed. I wined and dined my wife this weekend, made her feel special, and I hope sincerely that you all felt the love as well. I tried to send as many messages out as I could to individuals I knew, especially on my team, but just appreciative of those who are out there who are mothers. And so to our board members, happy belated Mother's Day to you. Every day is Mother's Day, not just yesterday. So happy Mother's Day to you. As we get into our legislative updates, we just have a few on this evening. UW-Madison will extend Wisconsin Teacher Pledge Program. The University of Wisconsin-Madison will extend the Wisconsin Teacher Pledge Program through the 28-29 year, thanks to an $8 million in private funding. This program covers tuition, testing, and licensing costs for students who attend UW-Madison Teacher Preparatory Program and pledge to teach in a Wisconsin school for at least 4 years. Seclusion and restraint data from the 22 and 23 school year was released by DPI. DPI has released this data from that particular school year. Overall, there was a decrease in the incidence of both seclusion and restraint, while students with IEPs continue to make up the vast majority of incidents. And then funding for Act 20 in question, there is a lawsuit that has been filed against DPI and Governor Evers for using his partial veto on the 23 Wisconsin Act 100, which creates a funding structure for early literacy initiatives. The lawsuit raises questions about the impact of Act 20's implementation timeline. So we'll wait for more information as that unfolds in the court system. I want to send my regrets for not being able to attend the West Allis Women's Club Scholarship due to a prior commitment at Hale. I was trying to rush over, but the doors were locked on me. They were in there handling business, so I was waiting outside and could not get in and to participate. But I do want to recognize several students from Hale and Central. So Ashley Petrovic and Robin Krajewski from Hale and Central, Isabella Barrera Rios, Kaylee Jertson, Miranda Malvitz, and Victoria Volpagel. Congratulations to all recipients, and a big thank you to the Women's Club of West Allis for bestowing those $1,000 scholarships on these young women. So thank you for that. Special recognition from West Allis Central, Taylor Ehrman, HOSA advisor, and her students had an amazing time at HOSA State. They were able to attend multiple breakout sessions hosted by various health professionals. This included neuroscience presentations, Narcon presentations, career explorations, and much more. They're also able to get FAST certified. This certification shows that they can perform life-saving first aid in emergencies. Kyra and Sean both got honorable mentions for their biology tests, and Sean received 4th place in his behavior health exam. The note says they had a really great time attending all of the activities. Go ahead.
The health. What's HOSA stand for?
Health operations.
Say that.
Health Operations Service Agency, HOSA. Okay.
So people know what I'm saying. It's for health careers, health related careers.
Master schedulers. Thank you to all of the following secondary master schedulers: Lydia Ceasing, Aaron Hovat from WAC, Carrie Skanecki from Hale, Amanda Hayes from Yaki, Katie McGrath and Jennifer Lahi from FLW, Sam Nadolski from West Milwaukee, and Mike Thron from District Office. They've worked tirelessly over the last 3 months, creating the master schedules for each of the buildings. This included endless hours of problem solving. Without their work, we could not get to the 24-25 school year off the ground. They did all of the amazing job, and I appreciate all of their hard work. I'm not sure if this is from Connie, but I want to send a shout out to Connie as well. She's the one that submitted it. I want to send her a shout out too for getting things going. So thank you for submitting that, Connie, but we need to salute you as well for your contributions and getting that done. So a couple of just updates, board member one-on-one meetings, we met with Dr. Zeman from Neola to discuss and improve policy updates that were approved in January by the legislature. FLW Spring Choir Concert, I attended that. Spring referendum sessions, constituent, parent, and staff meetings, West Dallas Rotary Club weekly meetings, UWM partnership meetings, more to come on that particular partnership that we're trying to build up, as well as a DPI hearing in Madison. I did leave off a couple of instructional rounds as well, so it's been a busy 2 weeks. I do want to close out on a couple of positive notes. I had the opportunity to attend the production of Anastasia a couple of weeks ago, and when I tell you, I just left just blown away by the talent that is in our district. I was just blown away. And my daughter is somebody who's not really moved by this kind of stuff. And I said, "How was it, Chandler?" She said, "Dad, it was good." It was outstanding. So to the team that put the production on, all of the staff, as well as our students, and behind the scenes, those stage hands, I'm telling you, everything. Orchestra, forgot about the orchestra. Is that an orchestra playing along with the play? I'm just blown away by the talent that we have in our district. And these are some things that I brag about often when we're talking to individuals outside of our district, because we hear about the things that they want to talk about, but I want to talk about the greatness of our kids and the things that our kids are doing. And these are the types of things that I like to brag about when I'm talking to other superintendents and other people outside of the district. So shout out to our students for their production of Anastasia. Our educators of the month, unfortunately, both were not able to attend tonight. One had a baseball obligation, and the other one has a grandparent who's turning 103 tonight. And so I totally understand why you're not here. It's not a big deal. Stephen Jordan is an ID teacher at Irving Elementary School. And Catherine Brammer is speech and language pathologist at Horace Mann. So we want to send a shout out to both as our for being our educators of the month for the month of April. And that concludes my updates for this month.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item 8, which are public comments for this evening. There are currently no one signed up for public comments, but I will wait a little bit of time if there's anyone on Zoom who would like to sign up to address the board. There should be a link in the chat in order to do so. There's no one physically here for the board meeting either who is running to go sign up. So I'll wait 15 seconds. In case anyone online came in late, would like to sign up to address the board. All right, seeing no additional signups, I will close public comments at this time. And we'll move on to item 9, our board reports for this evening, starting with 9.1, a review of our board calendar. So today is May 13th, and we have a regular Board of Education meeting. And then we have 3 college and career readiness workshops, one on academic career plan for grade 6 through 12, our K through 5 science adoption, and our district technology plan. Then on Monday, May 20th at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting. And we have 2 workshops. One is our referendum workshop number 4. And another one is a staffing update. Immediately following, we have a closed session meeting. And for those that are confused by us having a meeting on the 3rd Monday of the month, because the 4th Monday would be a holiday, that is why we have our 2 regular meetings that have been shifted forward. Something that happens in our calendar often when we have holidays towards the end of the month. Then on Monday, June 10th at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting, and immediately following a financial stability and efficiency workshop, our proposed 24-25 budget and preliminary tax levy number 2. All right, moving forward, 9.2 is appointment of our district parliamentarian, CISA number 1 delegate, WASB delegate, and WASB alternate. So for those who are unaware, Mr. Sikich has been serving as our parliamentarian for several years now. And so I want to start by asking Mr. Sikich if he would be interested in that position again.
I would, but if there's somebody here that would like to try it out, and I have no problems giving that up.
No, I'm not
Otherwise,
selling
I
for
would
that.
be happy to stay there.
All right, is there anyone else who would want to take on the role of parliamentarian? No? All right. So we don't want to take action on that. So if you're good being parliamentarian, yeah, we don't have to vote on that. So congratulations, Mr. Sikich. Thank you for agreeing to be part of parliamentarian for another year. Moving on, we have our CISO number one delegate, which is Miss Deal. So I'll start by Miss Deal. Do you want to continue being the CISO number one delegate?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I've got the convention on my calendar, so. I mean, yeah, unless somebody else wants to.
Does anyone else want to do CISO delegate? It's a very low commitment
Yeah, it's one meeting a year.
thing that you have to.
Yeah, I did it.
Okay, well, seeing none. If Ms. Deal is amenable, then congratulations. Ms. Deal will continue on to CISO number one delegate. And moving on with our WASB delegate and WASB alternate. So our WASB delegate was Ms. Kaiser. And who was alternate?
Is it Jeff?
Jeff was alternate?
Mhm.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I'll start with the delegate. Are you interested in being WASB delegate?
Yeah.
Continuing, okay. Does anyone else have any interest in being WASB delegate? The main thing for WASB delegate is going to the state convention and being there to cast the votes for the board on the resolutions that WASB puts forth every single year. That's the big thing.
Making comments to other people.
Seeing none, all right. WASB delegate for another year. Thank you, Ms. Kaiser.
Thank you.
And then WASB alternate was Mr. Sikich. Mr. Sikich, are you interested in doing that again?
Again, unless somebody wants to do it, I'd be happy to do it.
Okay. Does anyone have an interest in being alternate? Oh,
What you want to do?
I was thinking I should have gone for the WASB one, but then I thought, okay, maybe I'll do this one. I was looking at CISA, but
Go ahead, Joe. I'll do it the following year.
okay.
Ms. Carter is retracting her interest for this the next year. Mr. Becker is interested. Mr. Sikich has said he's okay if someone else wants. Mr. Becker for alternate for WASB.
The alternate.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Becker, for taking on that responsibility in case, heaven forbid, something were to happen to Kristen or she was ill. There would be someone to fill in at the state convention. So please plan to attend the state convention.
Will do.
All right. That completes our 9.2. So we'll go to 9.3, our board reports for this evening. 9.3.1, college and career readiness. Ms. Carr.
Thank you, President Lee. The first item on the agenda was an update on senior privilege. Just to refresh everyone's memories, this is the first year that senior privilege has been implemented. It is a privilege granted to seniors that meet certain criteria, such as a minimum of absences or tardies and maintaining a certain grade point average. It allows seniors to leave and return to campus for a designated time period during the school day. So the committee actually asked the administration for a follow-up on that. How are things going? How, first year of implementation. And so we said, how many kids actually met the criteria? So at Hale, the first semester, and this is by semester, everyone. So first semester, there were 40 kids that were granted senior privilege. And second semester, there were 53. And at Central, first semester, there were 21 that met the criteria. And then second semester, there were 59. So that's great data. It shows us that they are, they're learning more about this. Question?
Is the criteria the same for both sides schools?
Of course, yes,
Thank you.
yes, absolutely, yes. Any issues with students not complying to the rules? That was something we really were concerned about. We wanted to make sure that kids were leaving campus. Were they going to come back? Were they following all of the rules that were instated to be part of senior privilege? And it was wholeheartedly from Central and Hale. Yes, absolutely. There was a little one in the beginning, early in the semester, but admin reflected and said it was really a lack of communication. So we're calling that 100%. Everyone is complying. And we also asked about how are we going to let juniors know so that they can prepare earlier for this. And they said that this year they shared at the beginning of fourth quarter, which is second semester. But next year they are going to share first semester with juniors so that they have a whole lot of time to know, hey, this is the criteria that we need to meet in order to jump in senior year and receive those privileges right away and not have to wait until second semester. So we did get some data that we were very pleased with at the committee meeting tonight. The next item on the agenda offered information and updates about a curriculum review and an adoption cycle. So Alyssa Barrage tried to shore up the system for adoptions of curricula. Of the curricula resources. So she created slideshows for what the adoption cycle looks like. And so that staff and parents can have a better understanding of it. We always had that process in place, but we never really said, oh, here is the process in writing. And here's where you can check the dates and say, oh, here's where we are in that cycle for this adoption of this resource. And so I thought that was a good thing for her to kind of solidify that procedure. So those were the two items, and that is all I have for my report tonight.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carr. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Carr regarding her report? I have a couple.
Okay.
For the senior privilege data, very interesting. Thank you for bringing that to us. Was there any rationale given as to why there was such a smaller amount of students at Central in the first semester that were participating, and then the very big leap in the second semester as to why that was?
There was not. When I heard that, I it's conjecture, but a lot of kids, they might not have really understood what the program was all about. That's my gut,
Okay.
but I can certainly do a follow-up for you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think to begin the year, next year, or to end it this year, I should say, we're gonna do a better job of promoting it and really trying to draw interest into it. So I think part of it is the lack of interest and lack of knowledge in what it means and what all of the privileges are. But we'll do a much better job of that, trying to do it over summer.
I was just gonna ask, are the options for the seniors at those privileges, are they gonna be the same then as far as when they can take those? Cause I have a senior this year, so I know what they were for this year. Is that gonna be the same in the
As of
future?
right now, we have not proposed to make any changes to that. If we do make any changes, again, we'll do that across the board.
Okay.
Because it's one thing that I've been very consistent with both schools is I need you on the same page. I don't need Yale doing one thing, Central doing another thing. So I just need to make sure. So whatever we decide, it will be the same.
The other question has, and I don't remember if we talked about this discussion about adding juniors as a possibility for this privilege in the future. I know I thought when we originally brought this up, it was, let's start with seniors, see how it goes. We have problems, and it seemed like it's working. Has there been any further thought about adding juniors so that they would be able to also participate in the privilege?
That was not discussed at tonight's meeting, but yes, it would be the second semester of junior year. And that could definitely be something that Dr. Robinson could make note of.
Okay. I think juniors and seniors make sense for something like this. If we can do it, people can drive and things like that, for going out. And then it also, I think if it's something that it's known, like when you're coming in as a freshman, it's something you learn about. And it's like something like, oh, this is something, if I want to participate in this, I better get my act together from the get-go, so that I have some things to
Forward to us as a reward for all your hard work. I agree.
Okay, great. And the curriculum review and adoption cycle, is that similar to the finance calendar that Mr. Norris has, saying on this date, we're talking about this, that date, so it's kind of a similar process as far as that goes?
And the process is the same every time, whether we're doing, a German textbook or K-5 science. We go through that same exact process every single time. And I think that really, and I have a lot of experience with this being part of the district for many, many years. I think that's really important that everybody was on the same page as to how we adopt our resources. And so, yes.
Great.
That's exactly what it's
It's
like.
almost like a mini strategic plan.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Very good.
But I would also echo again with the finance team, it's important that they build their budget based upon knowing what's coming up for adoption. So yes, to answer your question, it definitely aligns with that. Aaron is on me saying we got this coming up next year. You know how Aaron's tight on money. So, so yeah, it definitely ties into that.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And then any other topics for Ms. Carr's committee to consider in the future? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Carr. Moving on to 9.3.2, communication and communications, Ms. Steele.
All right, so we last met on April 22nd. So we discussed, the first thing we talked about is our newsletters. So the monthly newsletter that we send out and then the West Way, we did a data review. So data was reviewed regarding the open rate for the West Way, which is the weekly newsletter, and then our monthly district newsletter. The open rate for our newsletters is around 46%, but we'd like to get this number higher. So newsletters are currently being sent out on Fridays at different times of the day. So discussions centered around sending the newsletters out on different days and times to try and increase the open rate. Then we talked about the spring engagement session feedback. Now they're all done with, but at this time we were just talking about some feedback. So the committee discussed the April 16th referendum engagement session and provided feedback on what worked and what didn't. Suggestions included shortening the information portion of the presentation to provide more time for community members to ask questions. And then last was we reviewed a draft referendum communication long-term planning. So communication for the referendum has been broken down into a monthly calendar. The calendar identifies what district events are going on that month and the types of communications that will be shared with the community. Each month will have a different theme along with weekly social media posts and a monthly video. There's also going to be monthly email updates going out to our staff about the referendum. And then our most recent social media ad for the referendum engagement sessions had around 18,000 views. That was our meeting.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Steele. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Steele regarding her report? I had one, for the open rate, when you were considering different days ties to do it, was that based off of, I have to imagine there's like data out there for like when they know people are more apt to open up something versus not?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I mean, and so it's just gonna, put it out there at different times, different days, sees, what the open rate is. She essentially has a whole spreadsheet that shows at different times where we see it open it, when is open the most and that type of stuff. So
Okay.
that was I think the other thing was also discussed is, sending it out more than once. So just kind of getting those rates up, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Or any topics for future agendas? I had one question. We had sent out that annual report around this time last year. Is that something that we're planning on sending out again?
That's a good question.
Whenever you can add it to the agenda, would be great.
All right.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Steele. Then we're on 9.4, board member reports of community events and events board members attended over the last few weeks. I'd like to report back on. Ms. Kaiser.
I was able to attend Anastasia as well, and it was just utterly brilliant. And Mr. Pollard and the kids did a phenomenal job. I attended 2 of the listening engagement sessions. I think it's been really well received. I'm really glad that people came out to learn more and just hear the data and the facts that we are presenting to them. Had some good discussions with folks as we, this tax assessor thing going on with our properties. It was very important to get out our message as well. And I also attended the FLW orchestra choir concert. And I just want to shout out our adaptive music skills group. They're just phenomenal. I apologize, I'm forgetting the name of the teacher, Miss Williams. I apologize. I'm so sorry, I forgot your name, but you're amazing and the kids are amazing. And the FLW kids that were in the stands waiting for their turn were extremely respectful and cheered you along. So I think it's a great program. It only makes our district more beautiful to include as many voices as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser. Anyone else want to report on events? Ms. Carr?
On Friday, I attended Walker Elementary's play Peter Pan. And again, we have a lot of talented kids and they were very well rehearsed and they did a really good job. But the thing that came up was after the play, the teacher came on and she said, well, we'd like to do a question and answer with the audience and the cast. And I thought that was a great idea. And so I raised my hand and I said, how many of you 5th graders think that you will be in the plays in intermediate and at the high schools? And 100% of those kids got those hands up. They were just so, I mean, you talk about a feeder program. I said, ooh, I think this is a wonderful thing to talk about in, as, grade school productions as well. Because that is.
They're doing 101 Dalmatians Junior this summer.
That's what I say, yeah, so we are having that,
Yeah.
starting this summer.
I love that idea. I love that. And it was delightful to see them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ms. Carr. Anyone else like to share an events they attended? Mr. Becker?
I made it to the FLW band concert a couple of weeks ago. Always nice to see the kids developing over the years. Also made it to a couple of track meets for the FLW kids. I was a high school track athlete myself. I didn't have grade school track. I didn't have that opportunity at a Catholic school. We just had basketball. So I think it's really interesting seeing kids who are running those races and learning how to push themselves. I think there's just a lot of lessons in sports where you learn what your real limits are. So it was really a lot of fun to watch and made me a little bit nostalgic. I can't run like that anymore.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Becker. Mr. Keller?
I'll keep it short because I attended some of the same things. I made it to a couple of community referendum sessions, which again, happy that we're doing these and happy to see all the people coming out to get the information so that they can be informed when it comes time to vote. Also saw Anastasia, and I will never not say positive things about our theater program. Mr. Pollard and everybody else just does an amazing job, and we have such great talent in our district, as everybody else has attested to. Also got to go catch the Hale Central baseball game about a week and a half ago. So it was a nice night. Got to watch a little bit of baseball and see our students play a good competitive game. Awesome. Hale, unfortunately, it hurts me because my son currently goes to Central.
Oh.
I mean, I'm proud of all of our schools, but my son is currently a Central student, so.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Anyone else would like to share? Ms. Steele?
Yep. So first I just wanted to just do a shout out to on April 23rd, I was able to present a Reflections Award to one of the students at Hoover Elementary. So PTA, National PTA always does a reflections program. And so kids can submit all types of, either a dance, a choreography, they can do art, any type of arts, music, that type of thing. And so one of our students, Felicity, was recognized at Hoover. So it was really cool to be able to go and present that award to her. And then I also was able to participate over at Walker, their spring cleanup. So again, a huge shout out to our PTAs who coordinated. I think they tried to do a cleanup of every one of the schools. So that was really fun. And then also again, a shout out to our Hale band. Miss W did a phenomenal job. I went to their spring concert, and again, it always blows me away how talented all of our students were. And I was able actually to see one of the Dr. Lexman scholarships be awarded. And I know there's 7 total, but it was nice to be able to see one of those awarded. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ms. Deal. Anyone else like to report on events they attended? Well, lastly, I shall go again. Was able to attend the referendum sessions. I'll echo everyone's sentiments on those. Those have completed for right now, but there will be more. So don't worry about that if you didn't make one. We're tabulating the information from a survey that was sent out community-wide. And then I'm sure we'll be discussing that at the referendum workshop on May 20th. I also was able to attend FLW orchestra concert. There were actually 2 scholarships given out from the Dr. Lexman's music scholarship there as well. So it was great to attend that. And you can, when you listen to the different grades, even within middle school, playing the different ones, you see the different levels as they increase to get more experience playing their instruments. So it was a great performance. I also was able to head over to FLW for the NXGL presentations. So we, as a board, saw kind of a preview of that during the sessions that we had in our workshop a few weeks ago. And so they invited us to come. I was able to sneak out on my lunch to go and take a look at some of those projects that the students had put together. So I was able to see the people the students have presented to us previously, as well as many other students that have put together projects and talk about, why they picked it and why they thought it was interesting and why they thought it was important. So I think it's again, a great representation. There was a lot of people in the IMC and listening to students talk about their projects. So I hope that's something that, I'm glad to see something like that continue on. It's a good representation of the type of learning that occurs in our district. And lastly, I just want to put a shout out. We're talking about, we had the Peter Pan at Walker. We were talking about Anastasia. Well, this weekend we have our FLW production, our intermediate school production of Alice in Wonderland. That's going to be coming out this weekend, only one weekend only. So if you're going to attend, make sure to make time this weekend to do so. So they'll be putting on Alice in Wonderland. And so another great show, I'm sure it will be. So that's all from me. And then I don't have anything in particular to discuss for 9.5. So we'll move on to our consent agenda for the evening. 10.1, approval of minutes from our regular Board of Education meeting on April 22nd. 10.2, our employment summary. 10.3, supplementary contracts. And 10.4, approval of continued use of facsimile signatures. Does anyone need anything separated out?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. All right, let's move on to our action items this evening, starting. Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. I'm going to pause 1 second here. We just made approval for a hire.
Yeah, so I want to introduce to the district, Mr. Kyle Berto. Mr. Berto has 15 years experience as a para, an educator and leader in the Denver metro area. Currently, he serves as the assistant principal at Monaco Elementary in the Adams 14 school district, which is right outside of Denver, Colorado, and is excited about moving to Wisconsin. Mr. Berto was the candidate of choice from the committee to be the next principal at Jefferson Elementary School. Mr. Berto is committed to building positive, trusting relationships with all stakeholders and rooting every decision in doing what is best for kids. He brings a great deal of knowledge and expertise in instructional leadership and the proven ability to establish and maintain a culture of learning at the elementary level. And so we have is he online with us? He is, Mr. Berto, okay? Want to turn it over to you. Welcome to the West Allis, West Milwaukee School District.
Yes, sir. Dr. Robinson, honorable board members, thank you so much. As Dr. Robinson said, I'm speaking to you from just outside of Denver. My wife is from Wisconsin, so we're moving there permanently here in my last day is May 31st, and we're hitting the road that night. I couldn't be more excited. As Dr. Robinson said, the only promises I can make is to work tirelessly for the students, staff, and community, and most importantly, build valued, trusting relationships with everybody. All stakeholders need to be heard. I will make sure of that. And my number one goal is just to listen with the intent to learn. I'm super fired up. I'm really excited to get there and get started. So thank you for the opportunity. And I'm excited to be part of the district.
Okay, yes, and congratulations, Mr. Berto, on your hire. We're looking forward to meeting you in person, and the great things you're gonna do here in our district. So thank you for bringing your talents back here to Wisconsin.
Thank you.
All right. So now we'll move on to our action items this evening, starting 11.1, approval of food service agreement. Mr. Borland and Mr. Norris.
Good evening, everyone. So we're here tonight to speak on behalf of the food service RFP, or better known as the request for proposal. And before we get started, I just want to take a second to thank Jeff. Jeff serves as our finance manager, longtime veteran here in the district, and he spent a ton of time on this. And I also want to recognize Helen Edwards in the back. Helen's our food service specialist who spent the bulk of her year on this. So this is like the bow on the present, so to say, tonight. So we're going to go through about 25 slides to kind of speak to the process and kind of get you into the world of kind of what we've been working through the entire year tonight. So with that, we'll jump in. We're going to go through a few things in the agenda. I want to give you some background on food service and Fund 50 and speak to a bit of like, why do we do this process? How does this work? And what is Fund 50? I know that's not new news to you. And I think many of you have been through this process before, but always a good refresher because it doesn't happen every 5 years. And then Jeff's going to take us through the RFP, the process, kind of what goes into that. He'll speak to some of the vendors, the proposals we received. They're actually here in front of us tonight. You can see the binders, the big ones we got here. kind of what the next steps look like, and then we'll get into the recommendation of the committee. So to give you some background, DPI does require, as food services federal funding for students to eat breakfast and lunch, they require every 5 years districts that use a food service company go to bid. And so our 5 years with Sodexo was up this year, and so it requires us to go to bid. They actually do set the timeline in which you can go as well. We didn't just pick, the timeline we're going to show you tonight by chance. It's required by DPI. So all districts that are on this cycle, this is the 5 years up, they went through the same process at the same time, right? Food service contracts that are typically outsourced are 1 year contracts for up to 5 years additional. And then through DPI and the United States Department of Agriculture requires that districts either use a fixed contract fee or cost reimbursable. And then obviously our Fund 50 is federally restricted funds, meaning it can only be used for food service. That means it's highly audited, highly regulated for those reasons. So Fund 50, not to go too deep here, but essentially our Fund 50 revenues and expenses need to balance every year. And they do. Actually, most years our revenues exceed our expenses. And Jeff will get into some of the details. You'll hear tonight that most organizations that we have in front of us offer what's called a guarantee. And what that's for is for our organization for food service related issues to be able to purchase, equipment and things like that to maintain the services that kids have, not just the food they eat, but the ovens, the refrigerators, all the cooling, things like that. So Jeff will talk about that in a minute. But essentially, we're not allowed to have a deficit, just like our Fund 27. We have to provide a transfer if we have our expenses exceed revenues and our fund balance it was zero, but we don't have that situation. And then DPI does require, if you have more than 3 months of operating expenses, you have to have a plan. And so we're in that situation. We've been there for a long time. And if you go way back with me a few years ago, that's when we moved to having all CEP schools and having students eat breakfast, lunch free, because we have this fund balance been working as one of the objectives is you troubleshoot an engine by doing something different and waiting to see how it works. So like every year we've been doing things different to try to spend that fund balance down. And so that's a little bit of background on Fund 50. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff to speak to the RFP process and timeline and kind of walk us through that, what the committee went through.
Thanks, Aaron. So I also want to give a shout out to Helen here. She did so much of the legwork, research, prep. We just couldn't have done it without her, and it's a real team effort. Everybody working together here, our committee, all the members of the business office here, and everybody involved. So thanks for that. You can see here on the timeline actually begins probably in December when we really start trying to organize our thoughts and thinking around this process. And then kind of end of January, we send off our RFP and proposal and plan here to DPI, who then goes through it, approves it, and gives us the go-ahead, basically. So then on February 7th, we sent, it showed up in the Now paper, our proposal and our request for proposals. And then shortly after that, there's a deadline for questions that takes place. And then there's the submission of final questions. There's a pre-proposal conference, you can see there. We give answers to questions, and then a deadline for the submission of the sealed proposals. Then there's the opening of the sealed proposals and an evaluation of the proposals themselves. And after we go through the evaluation process, we send our results to DPI. They give their approval that our process was good, and they're in agreement with us. And then we bring it before the board and apprise you of what the committee and the process has found. And after that, hopefully we're all in agreement. We'll kind of go with the next steps after that. So you can see here our request for proposals. This is what was published in the Now. We also sent it to every vendor on DPI's vendor list, our food service committee vendor list that they have. There are about 40 different ones. And as we led up to this process, we did get some people reaching out to us directly from different vendors who are on the DPI list, and we emailed them the proposal specifically. Our objective here was to get as many people to respond to us as possible, get as much competition as possible in the process. So, it's understandable that vendors, after reading the proposal, might have some questions about, this or that. So there is a deadline which they can submit questions for. That was February 15th. And we got questions from 6 different vendors regarding our proposal and the process. And what happens is that the questions are compiled, answers to the questions are compiled, and then they're all provided to the vendors who attend our pre-proposal conference. Okay, so those were due on the 15th. And you might say, well, you know, why only are answers to the questions given to the vendors? Well, DPI, it's a DPI requirement that only vendors who attend your pre-proposal conference are allowed basically to submit proposals. So really, they're the only ones who are at the conference who really need answers to the questions and who are going to engage with after that. Okay, so there's a pre-proposal conference and site visit. After it's part of our RFP, folks came, 7 different vendors attended our pre-proposal conference and site visit. And what we did is we provided them a packet, an agenda, questions and the questions and answers that had been submitted by the deadline. Some street maps to 3 of our different schools. We visited Nathan Hale, it's production kitchen at our high school. We visited Frank Lloyd Wright Intermediate, the production kitchen again, where they'd be producing lunches, food for our students at another production kitchen. And then Mitchell, because it was close by, and example of an elementary school and how food service takes place there. So we had our vendors here who attended, and it was a good representation, I think, of what we were looking for from them. So at the end of the day there, on the 25th, they had additional questions. They were to submit them to us so that we could get back to them before the proposal deadline. Next year, March 25th, the proposals, you can see here, they're kind of weighty documents. They were required to be in our hands. And then the proposals were opened on March 7th. They came in sealed boxes, March 27th. They came in sealed boxes. It was one of the easiest meetings I ever hosted. Basically, we opened the box, read the name, told them our next steps, said thank you for coming, and sincerely thank you for submitting a proposal to us. You know, that was really the extent of our meeting there on the 27th. After that, now comes the evaluation process. So get a committee together to consider which proposal is going to meet our needs to the greatest extent. Now, the food service touches almost everybody, right? In some way, fashion. And so we wanted our committee to be representative of the organization and as many of the constituents as we could in a reasonable sized committee. So we had 13 staff, students, administrators, program managers, high school students. We included a couple high school students. You know, even athletics was represented. They give many banquets. Often they're using the food service provider to provide food for banquets. And so this was our committee, a good group of people. We came together and we considered the rubric that is defined by DPI. So these are the criteria that we went through are defined by DPI, and they're the things that we need to consider. So there were 10 criteria. We met on 3 different days. And on day 1, we basically went through criteria 1 through 9 and kind of worked through a process. We gave the members of the committee an opportunity to become familiar with the documents on their own. Then we discussed each criteria. Then we kind of reviewed the criteria in light of the proposals, and then had some discussion. What did people find? And then we discussed what they found. And then each of the members scored their own rubric themselves, never reporting out. So it was kind of a, I wouldn't say confidential, but they kind of kept to themselves. So there was just everybody could decide for themselves how they were going to rank and rate these different criteria. So you can see kind of this is the process we went through for each of the 10 criteria. And starting at the bottom, DPI decides how much each criteria is going to be scored. Max, in this case, for cost and the financial proposal, 40 points. So we went through and found some references in the documents because 13 people coming together one morning, trying to find the information in these proposals. So we started with these references, allowed people to go through and find for themselves. Sometimes we highlighted kind of in the middle some of the information that needed to be considered. In this case, DPI requires the proposal that has the highest projected profit to the district to get the highest score. So, we ferreted out that kind of information for them. Again, committee members were allowed to go through the proposals and then we discussed it and then they scored their rubrics on their own.
And so you can see kind of through each criteria. So criteria 1 is cost financial proposal, and you kind of get a sense each criteria as outlined by DPI. We tried to walk people through where to go, kind of allow the conversation to start. And then we broke people, each group got broken up into 3 people. So like, a teacher, administrator, and a student would meet and talk about what do you think about criteria 2 or criteria 3, and we kind of work our way through them. And what's nice is the criteria are broken up into specifically what are the areas of consideration under transparency, rebate reporting, and discounts, right? And so it allowed people to specifically focus on each criteria to score independently as required by DPI.
Yeah, find the information, look at it themselves, discuss it in the group, discuss it in a whole, score it themselves. All right, so I'm on number 3.
Yep.
So here you can see it's kind of an interesting thing. As Aaron stated, the Fund 50, the food service program, is a program that is supposed to fund itself. I mean, ideally, it funds itself. We don't want to be taking money out of the Fund 10, the general fund, and running the food service program. So we've done pretty well at that. But part of that is each of the, along with the projected profit and loss based on our, the expenses there, they also have a guarantee that they provide us that you should be able to get, X dollars guaranteed if you go with our food service program, with our plan, that kind of thing. So on to number 4 there, you can see here experience, references, service capability. We want to make sure that we select a food service vendor that is capable of meeting needs of quite a large district here. Financial condition, number 5. You can see here, 10 points there. On-site manager. It's great to have an on-site manager with each of these plans. Each of the 3 plans had an on-site manager. Number 7 there, the professional development and staff training. We looked through the proposals for evidence of that they were going to be training up the work that needed to be done, training up the personnel on the work that needed to be done so that we could have a good food service program. Proposal number 8, or criteria number 8, promotion of the food service. It's to our benefit and the kids' benefit that they want to participate and eat the lunches each day. And number 9 here, the involvement of students and staff and patrons, getting feedback from the community and then responding to the community. So we pretty much did all 9 of those criteria on that first day, that first morning, and walked through them together, discussed them, and scored them. The last criteria was really about, does the food appear tasteful? Are the portions appropriate for the grade level? Does the food meet the nutritional requirements? Is there a variety of foods to choose from? So we felt, we had heard that some people had tastings, some RFP committees had tastings, but we felt, I'm sure all these companies can make a good meal. There's no doubt about that. So we decided, we should try to have the student experience. Go have the student experience at each of these, for each of these food services. So we reached out to three different, you can go on to the next one here. Got it. We reached out to three area school districts representing each of the vendors. We went over to Nathan Hale that Monday and had a meal over there. All 13 of us sat down and amongst the kids and had a meal and chatted with them about what we were doing and talked to staff that were available. We went to Pewaukee on the second one. They had Chartwells and sat down again with the students, talked to them about the food, and we were eating right alongside of them. And Brown Deer had Aramark, and we're very grateful to the school administrations. I've been in schools a long time. I've never heard of a group doing this, and they were very receptive to us. So I really want to thank these school districts. It was outstanding and really did, I think, inform the group about, at least criteria 10.
Yeah, we kind of, as a group, were talking amongst ourselves on day one, like you write the review at the restaurant after you have the food. You don't write it when you look at the menu. And like anyone can come in and put a show on for you and, cater a good meal, but we want to like live the experience kids do and like talk to the teachers and talk with the administrator, like who eats the food? You eat the food there? No, I don't. Okay. Well, that tells me something. You know what I mean? So like you get into the space with people and you learn a little bit more than what's in a book. So that was kind of the idea. And I think it was really successful, to be honest.
So successful. So that worked out very well. So here are our scores. We tried to, without calling out any individual on the committee, but wanted to communicate the scores. And at the bottom there, you can kind of see I'm going to call them descriptive statistics, the results, right? So if you look at the very bottom one, the sum of the ranks. So like golf, the low score wins here. Your top rank gets a 1, your lowest rank gets a 3. So low score wins. Chartwell's won that. The average rank. Okay, so we looked at the average rank here, 1.3 Chartwell, Aramark, and Sodexo. The number of first places, you might say in voting, let's say vote. Okay, well, first place went 8.5 times to the recommended vendor, and you could see the other results. And third place, which was least desirable to the group, and you can see that there as well. So our next steps. So what we want to do is recommend to the school board vendor. What we want to do is formalize the result, the board's approval, if we are able to get it tonight. We want to reach out to the vendor and work towards a signed agreement and get that done at ASAP, and then meet with the vendor and make sure that they're ready to go on July 1. Those are our next steps and what we plan to do next.
So I guess for all the reasons Jeff mentioned, our recommendation tonight, based on the committee of 13 individuals, staff from across the board of the district and also student experience, is to recommend that the board approve a contract with Chartwell's Food Service for the 24-25 school year. And a couple other things before we take questions, to speak a bit to Chartwell's as an organization.
We just thought maybe you haven't heard of Chartwell's or that kind of thing. So just a couple little pieces of information here that you might be interested in. Nationwide, Chartwell's serves more than 2 million meals a day. They have 26 districts they work with in Wisconsin. Some of the districts here are listed on the right. You probably know they're nearby, similar size, that kind of stuff. They're part of a subsidiary company called the Compass Group, which had 38 billion in sales last year. So they've got some financial wherewithal, so to speak, and 26 years managing food service as a food service management company across the country. Lastly, here, the proposal that we went for includes the retention of all current associates. So they might be working for Sodexo now, but they're going to be offered jobs with Chartwell's, and maintaining the wages and offering expanded benefits and professional development opportunities. Increasing their plan is to increase the number of students eating the food service meals. They are going to provide a chef-led culinary program. They have 4 additional hourly positions they have planned in their and their wage package and their staffing package. They have an hourly, plan for one of the hourly positions to become a salaried position, and want to introduce more locally grown and wholesome food products. They want to support student initiatives whenever possible, and they want to engage all the stakeholders in feedback so that they can improve their practice process, what they deliver to us.
So we did our best to sum up, essentially 8-9 months of work here into 25 minutes. So it's a lot of information, but I want to take, I guess, a pause here and just take questions you guys have or thoughts.
Questions, Ms. Carr?
I have 3. So the committee, you made sure that you had a lot of representation from across the district. But how did you choose the people that were on the committee? Let's say like the elementary teacher, how was that person chosen?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Jane. So I tried to select people who have been here for a long time.
Oh.
And I tried to use kind of a litmus test of people that work in the district from a different range of elementary teachers, intermediate, high school, secretarial positions, administrative positions. Essentially, I wanted people that have kind of lived through our current vendor to be able to speak to it, because frankly, if you've been here for a year or two, it'd be hard for you to like live through kind of what is the day-to-day look like in your school. That's important for you to know. I think that brings the experience we're trying to get at, Pewaukee versus Brown Deer. And speaking with those teachers, that was one of the questions that I know a few of us asked, like, how many years you been here? How long you had here, Mark? Like, we're trying to get that from them too. And how do you get that from your own staff? You ask people who've been there. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed when I am in the elementary, and I'm not sure if it's in the intermediate and the high schools, it possibly would be, but the televisions that have been put into the cafeterias, were those provided by Sodexo? And, with the trivia so that the kids, while they're eating lunch, they have these. Who supplied those televisions, and will they be taken down? Will they be? Or were they provided by us?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. We
own them?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we could keep that going.
Yeah, that's right.
Because just as somebody who was in the lunchrooms for
Mhm.
many, many years, that was wonderful to see those televisions. There's like up 2 to 4 in there, and it's got trivia and just all kinds of things about healthy eating. And I would hate to lose those
Yeah.
if Sodexo took them back, but love that.
Sure.
Okay, so Sodexo did a lot of extras, providing the cookouts for the Battle of the Dogs, and they did. Was that done because we built a relationship with them over the years, district and Sodexo, or was that part of their proposal? And will those things be provided by Turbo?
Yeah, I think the best answer to that is, I think your first comment's correct. Like, it's through a relationship, and those agreements aren't like within a food service thing. That's a
Right.
catering piece to that.
Right.
And so certainly through our relationship with pending board approval, Chartwells, I wouldn't expect things like that to change, because the source of revenue for those things is obviously outside of this agreement. This is for food service for students. So we certainly I don't have any anticipation that anything like that will be any different. Just
All of us really appreciate the relationship we've had with Sodexo over the years. It's been good. But we pay for those things, and it's a profit moneymaker for the company. And, and the people from that company were willing to invest in us, and we're hoping to parlay that going forward with the next vendor. We don't have any reason not to think that will happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Ms. Kaiser?
This is more of a comment, and then Mr. Norris already emailed you. My next thing I want happening is a better connection with the West Dallas Farmers Market and some local CSAs. We live in Wisconsin. We should have farms knocking at our doors to help, with our students. So I'm just glad to see that is, looking at their website, it's really big for them. Because I think our kids, I like something they mentioned on their website was bringing kids to local grocery stores. And like having our kids realize that the outside aisles are the ones you want to shop at, not the inside middle aisles. That's where the healthy options are outside. So seeing that on their website as like one of their big proponents is really nice to see. And I appreciate that.
And part of their proposal.
Yes. Oh, yeah, good.
Other questions from the board? Just. Mr. Becker.
I had a couple sort of related. I was curious if the proposals listed for Chartwell's were unique, if there were differences between the other proposals. And then really just trying to square that with the differences in the financials that showed up in criteria 3.
Sure.
Because if we're not going with the least expensive option, I hope it's far and away the best quality.
Yeah, so I can speak to a bit of that, and then Jeff, maybe you can jump in and fill some of the gap. And so the guarantee from Chartwell's is the lowest one. It doesn't mean that it's the most expensive, separate things, but to your point, Joe, that is it
too. Yeah, maybe I'm misunderstanding exactly what that guarantee.
Yeah, so essentially the guarantee says, hey, at the end of it all, when it shakes out, Chartwell's is saying there'll be a $400,000 like surplus, and that surplus can be used for things like purchasing new ovens and refrigerators and things like that the food service program needs, which is obviously helping to keep it sustainable. But the main reason, as we dug into the differences on why those might be, is staffing, number of staff. Jeff referenced that, about four additional positions, the amount they pay for benefits, and the wage. So like those are all things that are different in each one. And one of the reasons why, as we've been talking as a board and an administration around paying teachers, that's no different here. And keeping people in these positions in our schools is really important. And to do that, unfortunately, in today's market, it costs more. And so different organizations represent that differently. And that's a commitment, as you can tell from why there's a lower guarantee. The last thing I'd say is quality is when we went to Pewaukee, there was a table that was full of teachers all eating the lunch. And we went there and I said, how many of you eat the lunch every day? And we all do. And that experience is not felt by our committee, who, to Jane's question earlier, are people who have lived with our vendor currently. And that's not to say that it's anything I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like, that's a very like powerful thing that I saw, witnessed, and then spoke with our committee about. So hopefully I answered most of your questions, Joe.
Yeah, I'd say so. And that was part of it too. I didn't want to get too far in the weeds with my, I wanted to kind of see where you went with it. But yeah, I was curious about exactly what the additional positions meant, if it was relative to where we are now. And I guess something like the student initiatives, I suppose, Mrs. Kaiser kind of touched on that one as well, as far as kids getting into the community and seeing grocery stores and thinking beyond the lunchroom. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions from the board? So the last time that our district went through this, I was on the committee that went through the RFPs. They had a board member on it. As treasurer at the time. I was assigned to be on this, and I went through the proposals that we had to go through and I didn't get to taste any food, but that was not the process at that time. So I understand how much work it is to go through this. And I wasn't involved in setting up to that point. I only was from the point of getting a proposal moving forward. And yes, they were that thick. I didn't have a handy dandy page number, like, oh, here's where you need to find this criteria. I had to go through the whole thing and find it to figure out where it was, if it was there or not, to come up with our scores. And so it is a very specific and in-depth process to get to this point. I'm glad to see, because as with teachers, paying staff is important. Having a different people because the staff that work at the building get to know that building. And so then you have someone else that isn't there or is filling in or whatever. It makes it more difficult. It makes everything slow down. And we know how fast lunches and meals are, because there's only so much time to feed everybody. And so I think that could really put a real an issue with our food service if we don't have that. Which brings me to my question. We're talking, so it's the 13th today of May, and we're expecting them to be up and running July 1.
Yep.
So what does that transition look like? We're completely switching. So are they using a different payment system? Well, I guess we don't worry about payment systems per se, but what if we do? Right? What if we do eventually go back to having to charge? And they do charge for like milk and things like, there's certain things they still accept monies for. So is it a different payment type system that we have? And hooked up with Skyward, if people need to put money in accounts, is that all there? equipment, like how I know our like the fridges and stuff like that's ours, but how much stuff is so that's getting pulled out? What needs to get put back in? That's Chartwell's if we go with this. So can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I can more of at a high level. I don't have the specifics yet. So that was one of the conversation pieces that we had as an administrative group after kind of the committee work was done. And so to be honest, I called the Chartwell rep, the manager there, and spoke with him, and his answer, which suffice to me, is they've went through this. I mean, these timelines, as I mentioned, this is how it works with DPI. These are the timelines that happen. And they went through this 2 times last year, one in Beloit, one in Fond du Lac, large organizations, large systems. I believe one of them is CEP. So I remain very rest assured that they can do this because they have a history of doing it. And so actually the work pending board approval tonight will start tomorrow with what that transition plan looks like. And then I'll certainly provide updates along the way and board updates into my committee around like where we're at, where we're going. But I have no worry that they won't be fully operational July 1. And if anything, to some of your questions, like some of those things might be the same until they feel comfortable to onboard a new payment system. And we're working through what that looks like. There'll probably be some things that are month 1 updates versus month 6. And that's my assumption, but I won't know until I meet with them.
I know when I was on committee 5 years ago, that was a big weight. It was a big lift to say like, oh, if we're going to switch, it's got to be really worth it to switch because of all the effort that has to go in to change over something that's been in place for as many years as it's been in place at all of our schools.
Yeah.
So I'll be looking carefully at how all that goes through so that everyone's ready to go. And it also tells me that it must be worth it. Because it's work that not just Chartwell's has to do, right? All the buildings have to have a role in that to be able to get to know new people and processes and things like that as well. So it must be worth it for them to say, yes, we think this is the best route for our district to move forward, at least for the next year for our food service.
Yeah. And that's a good point too to make. I'm glad you ended with that. No, like this is a 1-year thing. So like we get a crack at this. And like if the committee, the board, like if we come together and say this is, we can always reshift and rebid and do this again next year if we feel like we have to. So it gives us some flexibility. So
I'm sorry to say it's not what I was ending on. Actually, what I'm ending on.
I meant your comment. My apologies. Yeah. Yeah.
So the Future Chefs competition that Sodexo put on, I thought was such a great thing for our students. And I was really pushing for it to be continued on into our intermediate schools so that our elementary schools that participated would be able to move that forward in intermediate and then into high school. For those who are interested in culinary arts and whether that's going to be a career or not, or something that they enjoy, I thought that was a great thing. So was something similar to that in Chartwell's proposal? And if not, I personally would be a very big advocate to trying to, I don't know if they have a competition like Sodexo has, it's nationwide.
Sure.
I'm not necessarily saying that we have to have something like that, but even if it's just within our district, love to have something like that moving forward, because I really think number one, our students are used to it at this point, because it's been going on for a number of years now, but I would like to see it. So it goes, it's a stepwise process. We have that kitchen at Docky now. Let's make use of it. Let's have the competition open from elementary, have it open to intermediate, and have something in high school as well, so that we can really give people the opportunity to learn the joy of doing that. Some people will really, who really enjoy that, I mean, not have the opportunity to do it at home for one reason or another. Sure. So for me personally, I would like to see something like that if it was not in their proposal.
Well, their proposal stated support for student initiatives whenever possible was one of the summary items that I pulled out. And because I think that mattered to all of us, you know, engaging kids, looking for opportunities to engage kids was part of several of these criteria that we all looked at.
Yeah. Good. Okay. That's all the comments that I had. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Move to approve.
Second.
Been seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you very much to you and to the committee for the work going through these.
Thanks.
Bringing this forward to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank Sodexo for all their years of service here in our district. Absolutely. Feeding our students and our staff. So thank you for that. All right, so moving on. So the next several items that we have are annual items that we approve. And so there was some discussion about possibly taking them all at once. So we're looking at 11.2 school district financial depositories. 11.3, release of the 24-25 purchase orders. 11.4, the 24-25 delegation of leasing authority. And 11.5, the independent hearing officer resolution for expulsions. And 11.6, designating this out now as the paper to publish board minutes. So if the board is agreeable, we would take all those together. And then I just have a motion. Right, but I also want to make sure there's nothing that Dr. Robinson and Mr. Norris want to talk about any of those items to us individually before we consider that.
No,
I do not.
All right, so I need a motion on that.
I move to approve 11.2, 11.3, 11.4, 11.5, 11.6 in one vote.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to 11.7, approval of the CISA #1 contract for the 24-25 school year. And say sorry, it was, I know you thought you had a lot of time.
No worries. Surprise.
And we did five at once.
This particular proposal or contract is for those outside services that we have for several students who have to go to CISA 1. As of note, there are no increases from last year or this year's proposal compared to last year. So
Is it the same services, like the types of services?
Same type of service.
Yep,
Okay.
so essentially it's essentially us some of them are the fees that we need to pay for the annual, but for the spots, it's us reserving the same number of spots. If we use them, we pay for them. If we don't use them, then we don't. So we're keeping it consistent with what our patterns have been as far as the number of spots that we want to hold available.
Did we use all the slots we reserved last year, this year?
We did.
But no
Not a-
slots that we have to increase. Slots.
Correct.
Questions?
Oh, sorry.
I'll make sure I have questions. So it's kind of an annual thing, but still, it's a dollar amount. It's not small, so.
Mhm.
Motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
And seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Thank you.
All right.
All right, moving on to 11.8, student representatives on our school board. Ms. Braj.
Yes, so we talked about this at length. Can't believe it was almost a month ago we did this workshop. So again, bringing this forward for approval to have students be formally part of our board. And I shared with you all the updated board policy and how that would be updated for us. And I took into account the recommendations from you all. So the process, which I've outlined again in the executive summary, would be that students would apply at each of their high schools. They would be selected, 3 students per high school, to be on the advisory committee that does meet with Dr. Robinson throughout the year. And then that advisory committee would hold a vote similar to how you all do to elect their one representative from their school to be on the board. And so tried to kind of marry the different ideas that you all had, as well as feedback we got from school leadership teams. And yeah, any questions on that? We've talked a lot about it, but anything left?
Questions from the board? No, I brought up during our agenda meeting about the letter D on the student representatives paragraph will participate during the regular open meetings of the board. I think that there's workshops sometimes that we're discussing something that I personally think would be great to be able to get input in that. I just want to make sure that our policy would not preclude us from inviting. So the understanding would be that they would have to attend workshops as well. But if there was a particular item where we're like, hey, I think we could hear from the student rep on this while we're discussing it, because the workshop is really, in my opinion, a great opportunity for that.
Yep.
Because it's more open discussion. We're not taking action. It's not as formal, if you will. So
Yeah, so as we talked about during the agenda review, you and I will work together to sort of facilitate the conversation with the kids. And to where we can really narrow down what we need to get from them and as far as the particular topic. In addition to that, I'll make sure they're prepped prior to the meeting. And then we have an opportunity to debrief following the meeting to get others' opinions following the meeting. Especially if there's just a workshop and there's not an action taken that night. Then the next time we come, they'll have to be better informed to make a decision if asked again.
Okay, so just to reiterate, the policy as written wouldn't preclude students from participating in that. It wouldn't require us to say, well, we're going to have to take action to say they can come in and talk with us, because under normal circumstances, you know, like public, it's open to the public, but we're not taking comments from the public. We're not taking input from the public. And so I just want to make sure we're not running afoul of that line.
Yeah.
So, and then the understanding would be that, you know, based on the conversations that the president and superintendent has in our agenda meeting, say, oh, this looks like a workshop where we might want to see a student rep, that we would then invite that student rep to come. Would the understanding be would be the student rep whose turn it was for that month, or would it be who could attend? Because what if that person couldn't attend because, hey, I didn't plan for that in my calendar. My third Monday of the month is filled with something else, but we really want to get some student input.
Yeah, we'll have an alternate for every meeting just in case that happens.
Okay. I think it's important because I think the workshops are really informative for the board on a lot of things, especially if you're not on the committee that workshop's coming from, and if it's dealing with something that's going to directly affect students, I think it'd be a great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, that was a question I had. Any other questions? I look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
I've been working on this for 2 years. I have to just thank everyone so much. Like I want to cheer. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that concludes our action items for this evening. Does the board need a 5-minute break before we move into workshops?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute recess and we'll come back with our first workshops. Resume, we're back. All right. Welcome back from our brief recess. We're going to start with our first workshop for this evening, 12.1 Academic Career Plan, grades 6 through 12. Welcome to Mr. Carr and Ms. Rogers here before. So take it away.
Hi. Okay. Hi again. We are excited to be here and share with you some work that's been done again over this entire past year to develop the Academic Career Plan and Education for Employment Program Plan. The Academic Career Plan is really just an umbrella term that's used to discuss all like post-secondary, all things we do in high school and planning for post-high school. Right. So accompanied with this, we've also been working on our website, which will preview kind of a draft of what we've done there, because part of this is just to ensure everyone in our community, students, families, you all leaders know everything that we have available to students while they're with us and what options are available beyond what we can prepare them for beyond high school. And so this is something that our local CISA 1 has been supporting all districts with developing to ensure that everyone has this plan in place. And then we bring it to the board to be reviewed. So it's not an action item, but it is an item that needs to be brought to you all. So you are also aware of what are the things that we are offering as a district. So I'm going to let Steve Carr, who's done the large majority of the work around this year, kind of walk us through just a quick overview of it and then see what questions that we have.
Thanks everyone for having us here just to talk through this process. ACP and the E4E plan, more acronyms. You know, we've got acronyms all over the place. It's alphabet soup everywhere we go. They're really important though for us because the academic career plan does come from the Education for Employment initiative that came out long ago. But that academic and career plan really does, as Alyssa just said, it creates kind of an umbrella for all of the actually 6 through 12 things that we do to get kids ready for success on their own terms after they leave us. So that's really important. So and that there's, I mean, just keep pointing out acronyms. There's DPI and anyway. So next, so the last language is DPI language. It's not, syntax is awful, and I really don't agree with how they wrote it. But the essence of it is what we were just talking about. This language came from a conversation we had a while back, just to kind of what would be kind of our vision for West Dallas, West Milwaukee in that context. So I'm going to read it into the record. West Dallas, West Milwaukee School District develops inquiry-driven independent learners through instruction that is personalized and engaging with a focus on college career readiness and 21st century skill development. In partnership with family and community, West Dallas, West Milwaukee School District fosters personal excellence and lifelong learning for all students to create learning that effectively works for our students. So that's kind of our overarching theme. The plan itself, as Alyssa was saying, it is a function of our interaction with CISA 1 and the ARC network. We're obviously not the only district in southeastern Wisconsin that works with CISA 1, and they've been very prescriptive, in getting all of our schools to get caught up with their academic career planning and the different functions inside of it. So we've had several meetings with the ARC network, and they've been very helpful in that regard. So the document that Alyssa's showing you is really our academic and career plan. And it has a number of very important components. It really does fit inside of the guidance that the ARC network has given us. So.
And here is the team of folks that Steve has partnered with to develop this plan. So you see counselors, our student services team, Chris Strozak, who's expert really in the world of CTE and has been providing his knowledge around this as well as building leadership and CTE teachers. Go back here.
And that's our program plan. We're communicating it with you today. And this is really, it's not a singular document. It's a whole bunch of different parts of what we already have done and what we'll continue to do. So, but it brings it, like I said, brings us into one umbrella so that we can continue to move forward with that. So.
And before we go on to the next area, I just want to show a draft of the website. So some of our work as a cabinet team has also been updating the website based on like feedback from hearing from you, from community members of things that maybe they weren't as obvious to them or wasn't as easy to find. And so this is, again, it's a draft because we're talking through this with you, but we would condense, we had a few different pages talking about planning for high school and beyond. Condense those, we'd have the academic career plan here at the top, which has like a short overview. And then underneath it, we have things organized together for like high school planning. What does that look like? The course catalog, AP courses available, college course options like ECCP and Start College Now. Then we'd have the Career and Technical Education Center. So really talking about what clusters we offer our departments and student organizations, and then post-secondary training and education. So really trying to make this information come alive and be way more accessible for families to explore. Previously, the website was some verbiage and then just this video. So this is like an updated version of it that we would like to do and then continue to make our website work for our families and for our students so that they have all the information right there for them. And then I'll turn it back over to Steve. This is the team. We kind of already talked about that.
The major components, they're all right there. The career readiness mission and vision, the career readiness stakeholders, which we just talked about. Then we did some data analysis and part of that functions off of our work with the Perkins grant, because that labor market analysis is super important as to why we're doing what we're doing in schools so that our kids have success on the other side and can find career applications to what they're doing inside of school. The Zello career exploration through Zello. Career cruising was something we might have been familiar with several years ago. Zello is the same underneath the same parent organization, but Zello is just their much better product. It's more student accessible, and it provides for a repository for all of the students' experiences 6 through 12 to kind of lead them towards a thoughtful career choice and inside of their school experience, course selection that leads to a career opportunity on the other side of the school. So that's a big part of what we're doing in the day in, day out school experience. In the ACP, we talk about family engagement and community partnerships, and that's a big deal. And then there is an aspect, how do we meet the needs of all of our students, including students who have, identified need and students who are underrepresented in some of our areas. So those are the major components. Well, moving forward, we're going to continue to accentuate the Zello experience. And we're going to utilize our current structures, advisory and homeroom, as well as our ELA and math classes to support Zello. We're going to continue to, and I think Alyssa bringing up that website, the website is just going to make it so much more accessible to families. People will be able to find it and access it. They don't have to click and get frustrated. It's going to be much more accessible that way. The profile of a graduate is something that we're going to continue to work towards so that we, as our students graduate from West Allis, West Milwaukee School District, that we understand how everything we've done since they, since they first joined us, whenever that is, leads to what we feel is a representation of the West Allis, West Milwaukee student graduate. So we're going to work towards that. We have roundtable opportunities with our stakeholders, including industry partners and community leaders, so that our teachers are making academic and career-based decisions that is really mindful of and consistent with our community expectations. And then we're going to continue to, we're going to try to grow out our experience with MATC, so that partnership is something that is mutually beneficial to our kids, the local tech college, and for us. So that's where we are. It's been a work in progress for quite a while, and our relationship with the ARC Network has really brought this. We're to this point now where I feel confident bringing this to you guys. So.
And just two things. So again, this moving forward is like our vision for how we want to continue to expand this work. Under the first bullet point, another thing that we have been exploring is with our access to VR technology. There's a lot of really cool programs that students can also access there to experience different careers and explore career opportunities. So we are currently trying to see how could we integrate that into our current curriculum. And then also with MATC, we have had some conversations. They've had turnover in their leadership this year. And so Dr. Robinson, I see, have been starting to meet with them to see what other opportunities are available to expand and ensure that students are getting the CT opportunities, but potentially dual enrollment credits and just different ways that we can set students up for post life beyond their time with us in our district. So we'll stop there for any comments, questions, thoughts.
Just let me expound on that real quick. As you guys know, there has been change in leadership at MATC recently. And that process has also affected the west area of MATC. So a lot of those conversations that we've had past couple of months prior to this change in leadership, now we kind of started from scratch because of the change in leadership. And so, but we have had those introductory meetings as well. And we're really looking forward to 25-26 school year and trying to really expand through a year-long process of planning things out. And so that class that are 7th graders right now, hopefully when they are 9th graders would have an opportunity for much more expanded opportunities for credits. That's not to say that those kids who are already in high school will be excluded. They'll have more opportunities, but we're looking, as I've said, I would love for every student who comes in our schools to have an opportunity to have an associate's degree before they leave high school. That's like the big plan. And so that's going to be a true partnership with MATC. They're on board. It's a lot of planning that goes into that, though. A lot of planning. So that's where we are right now.
Questions from the board? Nothing? This is the first time we've heard about this, right?
Yeah, in this kind of formal setting. Yep.
So then annually, we're gonna report on.
Yep, from here on out, we'll do an annual report, probably this month. Yep.
Okay. And then, what's the first communication that's gonna go out to families about this new website and, you know? new
Yeah, so we have,
resources?
we will update the website probably tomorrow.
Mhm.
And then work with building leaders to get a communication out this week to let them know that that is live, that those opportunities are there.
Mhm.
So that will likely come from, building leaders this week.
All right, nothing else? Thank you. Oh,
I was
Mr.
gonna
Becker.
say, as far as the site, I missed exactly, is that gonna reside within the district site? Cause I was just
Yes.
bombing around and trying to find, okay, so it'll be in the learning section presumably?
Yep.
Okay.
So currently, because you can't see the draft, currently, there's a few different sections. And we found that on our website, parents have to kind of navigate to different things for really under the same bucket. So we want to make it more obvious for them to get to. So C tiers, if you're looking at the current one, C tiers would go under the planning for high school and beyond. There were a few that we condensed into that one course catalog we would keep separate as well as include there. Because that's one that's highly accessed by our community. But yeah, just trying to make it a little more fluid.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else from the board? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our second workshop for the evening, 12.2 K-5 science adoption. Oh, there's Adam. Mr. Hengel and Ms. Farage. Take it away once you're ready.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll drive the next one.
Okay, thanks.
All right, good evening. Thanks for having me. First up, we have K-5 science adoption. So we're just going to go through some slides, talk about our process, what we've been working on as a group for the last 8 months, and then just kind of talk through that. So thanks to the team, I'm sure they're watching on Zoom. So we had, I think there was about 9 different teachers that were part of the process from 5 of our elementary schools. So I'll go through in the timeline of how people were kind of working towards this. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, so this is what Jane was speaking about from our committee meeting. So we've done a lot of work this year to just take the process that we have and clarify it, ensure that it's a consistent process across all curriculum adoptions. And so what you'll hear is we are currently in year 2 with K-5 science from the perspective of last year, we were reflecting on like, what are their current resources? Do we like the current resource? Do we not? Year 2 is really where we pull together a committee. We do piloting, and that's when it comes to the board for adoption. And then year 3 is the actual implementation. And it's an 8-year cycle. So you're really with the core resource for 5, but we have to do this like a lot of front work to make sure that the resource that we're paying for is is a strong evidence-based resource. And it's also financially like a responsible choice by our district. So yeah, so we're going to speak to kind of year 2 and what this year for the past 8 months has looked like.
And then, so this is the process that we followed. So we have a little rubric that we are using. It speaks to all these different criteria, things like making sure it's aligned to standards, making sure there's supports for all of our learners that are involved. Is it adaptable for learning styles? Is there ease of use? Is there professional development data, things like that? So our timeline, we started back in the summer of 2023. So every year CISA 1, as like curricular people, we all kind of fill out some documents on like what resources are people using. Some people give like, yeah, we like this, or no, we don't like that one. So we started there. Then in September, we started contacting companies to get some samples. And then we started beginning a process of an initial review. So some things that we were really looking forward or looking for, as a committee, we identified pieces that we're looking for an inquiry-based resource, something that's flexible, have the ability for multi-age, it's standards aligned, and then we wanted to keep cost as a factor as well. In October, then we sent out a district-wide email following one of our professional development days that reached out for committee members. And then we started meeting as that committee, and we started reviewing Houghton Mifflin Hardecourt, so like Into Science. Great Minds, Amplify Science, McGraw-Hill, and Mystery Science were kind of the ones that we started nailing down and getting samples of and really digging into those, and then starting to look at our rubric. And over that month, a couple meetings in there, we identified 2 resources that we wanted to pilot. So the first one was McGraw-Hill Inspire. The second one is Mystery Science. So then I worked with those companies, got everybody full access for digital pilots. We got some, McGraw-Hill has print materials that they sent to us. We did some with the committee members, we did some professional development with some of their trainers so they could get into the system, both for McGraw-Hill and for Mystery Science. And then for the past February, March, April, everybody on the committee kind of taught one unit through both of the pilot materials. So we were doing both Mystery Science, and then they were teaching a unit out of McGraw-Hill. So there's some notes in there from our committee meetings, which I've summarized in a couple slides. And then we started working with reps to get quotes. And then, we were at board committee last month, and then coming to you all for this workshop. So when we get down, you can put it. When we get down to our last 2, Mystery Science, Inspire Science. So Mystery Science, they're both NGSS aligned. This was obviously one of our core concepts that we were really looking at. And so both having that the flexibility, this eliminated actually a couple of the resources that we started looking at right away. They were, I would speak to sales reps and they're like, oh, if you have multi-age classrooms, like we flat out, we're not the resource for you. So we started eliminating some of those. Some resources are built where you have to have 45 minutes of science every day. It's really not inquiry based. It's more like tight on science textbook. Yes, that's a good way to put it. And so, the pros for Mystery Science, and we did a district-wide pilot. So everybody in our entire district had access to Mystery Science this year. They might not have been on the committee, but they did have access to that as a district-wide employee. So some highlights too that we were looking at is they have assessments for every lesson. These are available in Spanish, and you can auto upload those right into Google Forms, so students can get feedback like instantaneously. It's constantly changing, so this is not a static textbook or workbook that they're going to send you and then it never changes for the duration of implementation and our adoption cycle. Like Mystery Science, they put out a ton of information around Earth Day and especially around the solar eclipse. Like I'm in that listserv, and we were getting like 3 emails a day, like, oh, we added an activity, we added this to 5th grade. So they really like that. One of their pieces is that they are really proud of the fact that they have basically turnkey professional development. It is a resource that is built where any teacher can go in there, easily find materials, easily prep, and that lift is kind of off the teacher for lack of better terms, I guess. So they actually, right on their website, they give you a PowerPoint presentation that you can train all of your staff with. So they include all the slides right in there so you can deliver that, as many times as you need with small groups and things like that. I keep asking them about like costs of professional development, and they keep coming back with like, well, you don't need it. Here's this slideshow that we've created. And I'm like, yeah, but what about the costs of like a PD day? And they're like, but you don't need it. You could use this slideshow. So that's like their big thing. They really pride themselves on that. And the videos are really engaging. We got some feedback from kids, and they're phenomena based. So they're putting it's not like I always go to magnets. We don't talk about magnets for 60 minutes over the course of 2 days. And then finally you get to touch a magnet. It's like you're watching an engaging video. They're talking about it. There's questions, there's collaboration. And then you're like playing with the magnets and, making your assumptions and things like that. And then you're kind of like experiencing like, oh, why does it actually do that? Oh, there's a North and South Pole. And most of our teachers, when they send me reports, they're like, your teachers are using it. They have been using it for a number of years, because you can sign up for a free account. And we have many teachers who I could just use myself as an example. They'll be like, oh, there's ahengel1@hotmail.com. And then there's ahengel1@gmail.com. And there's ahengel1 at AOL. They're like, this person's been using this for 6 years. So we do have some experienced people. And one of the pros, which we'll get to in a little bit here, is the cost of Mystery Science. So Inspire Science, it's NGSS aligned. They have this really cool, this is a McGraw-Hill product. They have this really unique path. And they have a path if you are in that like 45 minutes a day for science, or they have a path where you're like 2 to 3 days, 45 minutes and more of an inquiry path. So that was very unique to that resource. That's why we decided to pilot that. They have really strong lesson structure and design. So they have, there's like a reading part, there's a video part, there's an experiment part. And then there's the ability for a digital platform to assign items to students as well. So our cons. So for Mystery Science, there's really no print materials. You're essentially buying a digital resource. A teacher can go in and print materials. We have a number of teachers who do that right now. They go in and they kind of make like a little workbook for kids, but you can assign those digitally again as well. And the teacher, there's not really like a script. So when we looked at McGraw-Hill and a number of other resources, you get your little teacher workbook and they're like, teacher says this. Same FOSS kits that we adopted about 20 years ago. It's like, teacher says this, you're asking this question to your students. Students should be giving this response, etc. And then our cons for Inspire Science are the cost. We'll talk about that in a second. Some of our teacher feedback was that students are going to get another set of workbooks. So they would have their ELA workbooks, they would have their math workbooks, they're getting another set of workbooks. It's another platform for kids to navigate, another platform for teachers to navigate because it's a different vendor. And so that was kind of brought up as well. Split grades can be a little bit more difficult with this, although again, they have that inquiry path that makes it manageable. And there's a significant commitment to professional development. Just learning a new platform, buttons, all that kind of back end things. And so that's at least 4 to 6 hours for like teacher platform usage. All right. So, and we talked about one of the cons being budget impacts. So for Mystery Science, you can kind of see a breakdown for a multi-year contract there. We're at about $88,000. That is, then we're looking at an additional $4,000 in PD again, although they're trying to say that we don't need that. But we budgeted for that. And then they do sell what's called mystery packs. They are like a pretty significant expense at about $400 per teacher, but that's like your pack where you're going to get your 30 cotton balls for this experiment. You're going to get your 20 Q-tips for this experiment. You're going to get your chromatography paper for this experiment. We've discovered it's not $400 worth of materials. So we talked as a committee that that's something that could be put together kind of like in-house and then in a bin for teachers and we can send that out. We're looking, I talked with some other districts, Pewaukee and Mequon-Thiensville both use Mystery Science. And when they did their adoption, what they did was at the district level, they paid for 2 years worth of the consumable materials, giving kind of that longer runway for buildings. And then that would become a building budget piece following that. And then, as always, super important in our department is working on our GBC and curriculum writing. All of the teachers that were on the committee were like, oh yeah, I'm in for like creating our GBC documents for this. We're working on kind of like some non-negotiable laboratory experiences that everybody will make sure that we have all of our students get. And you can see the cost there. So about $117,000. So for Inspire Science, it's almost quadruple the amount for the subscription services. And then there's the significant professional development there. Again, the consumables, similar. Some of the labs are a little bit different. So there's a little bit of a higher cost there, and then the same curriculum writing. So we're almost at like 4 times the amount. And the committee, we had some really good conversations about this. That, one of our pieces that we were looking at was cost. And so we wanted to make sure that we took that into perspective when we were making our final recommendation. Some other considerations as well is that, we're going to be, as elementary educators, we're going to be really working on our early literacy professional development. This came up from some of our teachers like, oh, we're going to be in that, all of our literacy PD. When are we going to have time to learn a whole new platform? And things like that time commitment. And then again, we've had literacy, you've got the Act 20 stuff coming through, but we've also had Scholastic and math core resource adoptions in the past 3 years. And so then people were like, well, to learn another platform and things like that, we want to be very mindful of that. So so ultimately our recommendation is for the mystery science piece. And that's kind of what we came forward as a committee. So any questions on that?
Kaiser.
I just want to say I actively teach mystery science and it is so engaging. And like the other day, my kids were making fingers that can move and join. Like from every single lesson, there is something you're doing. And like I said, it's really inexpensive to just go to Costco and get the plates, the cotton balls, or whatever else it is. I think this is going to be really fun for kids and for teachers. It's extremely intuitive if you've been teaching for a while. So I was thrilled to see this come forward.
Other questions? Ms. Carr?
So, and maybe Kristen, maybe you can answer this. So mystery science, take me through a lesson.
So you watch it, usually it starts with a video, like an engaging video of like, do you know the size of your body? And it's really cute. They'll have like a skeleton over here, it's like your body all folded up. It's just really cute. Like it's engaging for 4th graders. And then there's usually like a worksheet to work your way through a little bit. Like, okay, here's your experiment. You need to get this stuff together. And then it leads you through each single step of building your experiment. So as a teacher, you're not standing up there with a camera going like, oh, pay attention. Like it's more like watch the video. It's got to be on a loop so you can watch what this next step is. And then so the kids are all very successful. And there's no work, there's no like textbook to be reading. It's a nice reprieve to the day almost. And that the kids are building something hands-on all the time. Super simple to make a lot of these things. Granted, I only teach 4th grade, but because it's so hand-on, all my learners are understanding it. And so there's the video component, there's working with partners, and the assessments align very well to our learning targets.
There's a link on slide 8. Yeah. If you click on the PD.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, but very fun and engaging. And like Adam was saying, like you go to the front page on any given day, there might be a brand new thing you can just do. And you have access to all the grade levels. So if you're like, hey, I need something for this, or you have a
challenge or something.
Not quite so much that, but like if something comes up in your classroom that's not part of your science, but maybe 1st or 5th grader doing it, you can look at it. It's what I really like about that. It's super adaptable.
Okay.
And we did talk about, we kind of thought as a group, when we're putting those kits together we'll have like a teacher edition that essentially we'll be making. It's online, but some people still like the feel of the teacher's edition, so they can mark it up and put their questions in there and post-it notes and all that kind of stuff.
Lessons can get done in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Some of these can get done in 35 minutes, which I know for some teachers, that's all we get. So you can get it done and not feel too rushed, and the kids still have a lot of fun when they walk away from it.
Yeah.
Are there formative and summative assessments?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good, Ms. Carr?
Okay.
You all right? Other questions? Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I know flexibility is a big thing with this, in the mystery science. I guess one of the things that I would be concerned about is that we tend as teachers to plan too much and not get to everything we want to do. So is there going to be like a set of expected units that the teachers are doing, and then with the idea that there's enough that there's also some optional ones for them to do.
Yeah, so the goal with within our GBC is to kind of come up with our anchor labs that like every student has to experience those. And then there'll still be leftovers for there's still leftover content within mystery science then to build out other things if necessary.
Because it too, just kind of the piece of like having that each school being consistent with all the other schools, because we have a mobile population and but then also vertically aligning to our middle school and our high school, like what they're expecting.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think the hope with the GBC, when we're using those with Fidelity, then we can guarantee that in first grade, all students have experience with these labs and these key concepts in science. And then second grade, because then to your point, they're not repeating also the same labs or the same projects throughout their experience and getting exposure to different NGSS standards. So yes, that definitely comes through the GBC work.
Thank you. Other questions? So one thing that I've learned at my time on the board is that professional development is incredibly important to get staff to actually be able to use stuff that we pay for.
Yeah.
So I understand that you've been asking about it, and mystery science is like, oh no, it'll be fine. Like just play this PowerPoint. I understand it's almost quarter of the cost of the other one, but it's almost like when you get the bids to do some work on your house and you pick the lowest one, and then you're like, I'm missing a few screws here. My floor is wiggling and my walls are crooked now. So I think that just keep that, we want to keep that in mind for this move forward, that the staff feel comfortable with. I understand some staff may have already been using it because of the free option and they're more well versed, but there are the other staff who are like, I don't know, mystery science, what's that?
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure that everyone will be as close to the same page as we roll this out as possible, because I love science. And so I want all of our elementary kids to get the opportunity to participate in it, because especially those experiments, because the hands-on piece of it is what gets the light bulbs rolling and the interest flowing in our young students to be like, I want to learn more about this. I want to do more of this. And so I don't want to chintz out on the experimental pieces. So whether that's buying it directly from the company or if we're putting those kits together, but I also don't want that to fall necessarily to the individual teachers to do that, because that might become a big task for them. Oh, I got to get, it's my turn to go to Costco to buy all of the blah, blah, blah to get all that stuff. I want to make sure that's still something that's organized from a building, at least a building level. So that before the year starts, that stuff is set and ready to go. So that's something that's done in summertime if we know that we need to do it for the year. So that people are like, oh, I couldn't do that experiment because I didn't have the kits, or I didn't have time to go get the stuff for the kids.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing I want to make sure we're doing. The PDs, they know how the staff understand, appreciate, and know how to do the work for our students, and then having the material so that when it's ready to do that experiment, the students are excited about doing that, because it's different. Like this guy, it's a different thing. It's different than what we do normally in class. Go do this fun experiment to learn about something, hopefully, and that everyone can have the opportunity to do that.
And part of the curriculum adoption cycle is that in the summer, after you all approve a new curriculum, we will always have summer learning opportunities for teachers who are like eager and like want to get in the summer, right? So we already have set aside dates for that in July and August for teachers who want to spend time in the resource earlier. And we have teachers that will take advantage of that. We will do the work as a district this summer to have the kids set and ready to go. So that's not something buildings will even need to worry about. And then to your point, we will also make sure there's time in the first week with staff to have intentional time to be in the resource and planning and exploring it together. So we try to scaffold it for people. Again, we have some staff that have been here a long time and they do want to come in the summer and feel more comfortable going into the year. And I think it is an advantage that we have staff that have been using it for a few years. So we do have some internal and our committee, some more seasoned folks with the resource to support across buildings too. But couldn't agree more. Yeah, we will make sure that everyone has what they need going into the year. So that's not a barrier.
And each year, 7-year progress, if we're paying for the kits, well, then that's less of a problem, right? Because this stuff gets sent to you. But
Yeah.
if we stop doing that, because it's like, oh, it's cotton balls and freaking Q-tips, like we can go get those things for way cheaper
Yeah.
than $400 a kit, which I'm not disagreeing with. But then who's going to do that? And who's going to put the kits together to make sure there's enough for each classroom? So as long as there's a plan in place for that as we move through, that I think is very important, because then our staff will feel that they have what they need to do the actual lesson. And then I think we'll be more successful in that. And then my only question is what plans do we have for, like, we have the PD list and stuff. This is a new thing. Well, 3 years from now, a new staff member comes in, who's going to be teaching science in one of our elementary schools. So then is there like, how do you do that? Like, we have all these things that maybe only we use, they've never heard of before. Are they, hey, you got to take PD on these 3 things because you're going to be teaching it? Or is it something like, oh, as you have time, you're doing it because now here's the beginning of the school year and you got to start doing that? So how do we do that to support our new staff coming in to make sure they can be successful using the stuff that we paid for?
Yeah, so during new teacher orientation, we always have 3 days, or we've moved to have 3 days with new teachers every August. So they'll come, I think this year's August 21st through 23rd. And we've set aside blocks of time, 3 hours, which is also what happened in the summer before we did Scholastic adoption and for Into Math adoption. So they'll do Scholastic in the morning and Into Math in the afternoon. So being intentional about making sure there is built-in time for our new teachers. Elementary staff will have an additional day to partner with their mentors. So that is an opportunity where they could be also going into the science resource. It's a balance, because you also don't want to overwhelm folks in the first 10 days with us. But we also think, to your point, having time, especially as new teachers, to connect with other new teachers. So there is built-in time during that to get them familiar with our core resources. And we do the same with secondary. So
That's like, we're going to build in time, not that the staff member has to find time, but we're
Exactly,
building in
no.
time to be able to go in
It's
and learn these
part,
things.
it's just
Yeah.
part of that programming that we offer with new teachers, because you're right. I mean, there's so many different curriculum available and across our state. While there are several districts using mystery science, there's, like 15 other science curriculum that's being used across Southeast Wisconsin. So,
Sure.
Yep.
Amplifies our core.
Yep.
Well,
That's fine. I mean, we could just list them all. There's so many available, so that's a great point. We just have to, I think we have to stay consistent with that with new teachers and with our welcome back week on how we're onboarding folks. So.
Okay. All right, those are my questions. Any questions from the board? No, all right. So when this will come, is it the 20th? Next week?
Yeah,
Okay.
next Monday.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the committee, the pilot teachers for going through this process. I understand it's lengthy, but it's also very important. I'm glad we're seeing getting updated resource for our students. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
And we'll move on to our last workshop for the evening, our district technology plan. Adam is staying put, and I believe he's being joined by a few others. Where do you go? Yeah, yep. Okay.
All right.
So tech plan, adoption, so just moving one seat over to the left. So, thanks for having Kevin and I. This is really like an opportunity. There's a lot of people who this impacts. We've been working with a lot of people, innovation coaches, teachers, business department, Kevin's department in technology. So, it's been one of those things that, started like in July of last year, talking about plans and things like that. So, we'll just work through the slideshow here. So just kind of a, 30,000 foot view for us tonight. We're going to talk about committee makeup, what the history is, timeline, and then like, why do we have a tech plan? What's our goals, hardware, software, and then, our WAWM1 device, and then committee recommendations. So, here's all of, again, shout out to all of our people on our tech plan team. So again, we'll go through the process, but kind of called out to everybody. We sent an email home to parents as well. We had a couple parents that showed up for a couple meetings, but then did not afterwards. So, and you can see kind of roles there. So IC is innovation coach. Brendan is here with us as well, as he is the innovation coach curricular lead. And then teacher, and then deeper learning coaches were on there as well. And then we had some administrators on there, and then some technology people and leadership learning. So thanks to all these people. So our timeline. So we started, Kevin and I started last summer. And then in September, we started working on our committee formation and working on our goals. And then early October, we sent out, we're opening it up to everybody, got some responses. Anybody who responded, we invited, and continue to invite for those meetings. And then starting really in October, we started with our committee meetings. So, our first meeting in October, we started talking, we got out the big chart paper and we were like talking about like what's working, what's not working. And then we started to make a really high level wish list, because that's like what everybody likes to talk about when we talk about tech plan. Like, oh, what if every classroom had this? And so we started with that. In November as well, we sent out a needs assessment, and evaluations were sent out to all staff. And then we started really digging into like results of that, looking at our tech plan. And then in February, started reviewing and revising our goals, sorting our wish list. You can see the rest of the things there coming to you guys for the workshop and board adoption in May. And then our implementation starts in July with the turnover of the fiscal year. So really our why here is we have the opportunity really to engage with our stakeholders. This is the reason why we have a tech plan. They are no longer required by DPI to have a tech plan and to submit a tech plan. This kind of went away somewhere between about 2013 and 2016, based on what I can tell from other districts' tech plans. So it's an opportunity for us to talk to teachers, to talk to principals, to talk to students, to have conversations, to invite parents, and really set that why. Like, why do we do this? We're trying to engage our stakeholders to make sure that what we're purchasing is meeting the needs of all of those different people who are touching devices. And we can get a pulse from our teachers. We've done, we've had staff surveys. We sent out the needs assessment survey. When we were creating like that wish list, those people were going back to their buildings and having conversations with teachers. When we were creating goals, we talked about like, well, what's the purpose of having this goal? Is it something that's measurable? Is this something that we can improve upon as we're looking at like a yearly review or a quarterly review? So things that are actionable, but it really allows us to engage with those stakeholders that maybe not on the committee due to time commitment or something like that, but they still want to have some say in that. So we've been on a 3-year cycle. This is, I think, number 3 tech plan for Kevin and I together. And what we've done is, we're providing this structured plan in order to create an implementation plan, create some success criteria, figure out where we need areas of support, and then make adjustments to ensure that our technology relates to all of our initiatives. So when we frame out what the tech plan looks like, it's aligned to similarly to our strategic plan. So we have financial pieces, we have pieces around our educational goals, resource management, professional development, all those different pieces that are on the front page of our strategic plan. That's where we got our kind of markers for us. So we're looking to really align the plan with the goals. We're looking to make sure that we are managing our resources. We're a public entity. We want to make sure that we are being mindful of that. We want to make sure that we're including professional development as well. So we want to make sure that we're planning these opportunities for teachers and non-teaching staff, such as administrators or substitute teachers, interns, EAs, things like that, so that they have the necessary components to take that technology and have that be impactful on their teaching practices. I think kind of what Noah, you were just talking about. We don't want something that we're buying and then 3 years later, it's like, well, nobody knows how to use it. We haven't developed people and continue that professional development. Again, the tech plan allows us to do some budgeting and planning. So that way, when we're working with the business department, we can say, hey, in 3 years, this is what our projected budget is. And we can figure out too, as some of our cycles are like 4-year cycles for teacher devices, 5-year cycles for student devices. We can plan for those things as those are bigger components of the technology plan as you're buying thousands of devices. And again, a why for us in the tech plan is that evaluation and improvement. So, we have goals that we have set. We have some markers, which departments are going to be measuring those markers, how we're going to measure them. And then again, stakeholder engagement. That's one of our biggest pieces for why we have a tech plan, because we want to be responsive to the needs. So, just a really brief run up of kind of how we got here. I'll throw that to Kevin.
Okay, so we started out tech plan milestones in 2017. One of the first tech plans that I actually worked on. We had some priorities that we were leasing devices when we purchased them, and they were short-term, low interest. They were usually like a 4-year lease plan. Since then, we've gone away from that because it got to the point where after the 4th year, the first year you lease, it's great. You only got that 1/4 of a payment. But then next year we're buying other devices. So now we have 2 4-year leases. And by the time you get to year 4, we're basically paying what to buy it out in full is, and then we're starting all over. So we found we started in the future, and now we're usually buying the devices outright, because after you get all those lease payments, you end up paying the same thing. Now, sometimes there's specials where there's no interest and so on, but for the most part, we've gone to purchasing devices. We invested in iPad cases back in 2017 to help protect the investment. We had a 20 to 25% breakage rate. The buildings had a choice of device. At that time, teacher devices were chosen based on student devices. So if there was iPads in the building, they had Macs, and Chromebooks, they had PCs. District, we were at the 2017, we were like 1 to 2 years into the Google Suite adoption. We had just started using the Google Suite. In the 21 tech plan, we moved our priorities. We're still mixed with leasing and outright purchases. We kind of started to make that switch during the middle of that tech plan. Reuse aging technology in classrooms. Some of the older iPads we did not resell, and they got pushed down to the 4K through the first year. They were using a little bit older devices. Building had a choice. And some of the teachers were moved, like Lincoln, I believe, was a Mac school. And so when they moved, it ended up moving to like Frank Lloyd Wright, that was a PC school. There was an intermix of Macs and PCs. And we've had the same issue with, not so much at the elementaries, with Madison and Longfellow, because most of those teachers moved to elementary, but Lane was also a Mac school. So when those teachers moved to Frank Lloyd Wright, so there's kind of a mix with Macs and PCs there.
All right, so this is kind of the framework for our goals. So again, loosely aligned to strategic plan, because in the strategic plan, there's like communications and things like that. So we have success in life through college and career readiness, effective teaching using digital tools. That's kind of our equity and equitable access to information, resources, and technology, and then our financial pieces. So just kind of like a high level, we have some like more granular goals that we also have, but like one of our major goals in each category, we're going to kind of highlight. So in this part, our district will provide technology resources that allow students to effectively research, collaborate, create, communicate, and publish as digital citizens in the 21st century environment. And so this is also a goal in our library plan, which Brendan did last year. 2 years ago. So in some of these pieces, they kind of merge. This looks like in our building, we're providing access one-to-one technology for all students. So whether that's iPads or Chromebooks, depending on what level they're at, iPads being 4K to 5, and then Chromebooks being 612. And we're also developing those digital literacy skills through having our K-5 students have our innovation classes. And we're also working on providing that professional development for teachers. So that's kind of like our major goal in that success in life through college and career readiness. Our effective teaching using digital tools. So we're again, strategic plan language here. Providing strategic, meaningful, job embedded PD centered around district provided technology, both hardware and software, and how to leverage this for student learning. You think about, like just recently, half hour ago, we're looking at Mystery Science. That's like a district software that we have to train people on. When we're doing Into Math, we have like district software that we are working with people on. Whenever we look at our New Line panels, we have district hardware that we're looking at training people on and offering that. So again, we're not having a piece of technology or a piece of curriculum that's just sitting there. That's not being utilized to impact the students that we get to serve every day. And so what does this look like in schools? This like aligned professional development, building level needs assessment, differentiated PD opportunities for our staff, and then like those collaborative learning opportunities, which is we know how when we're sitting in a room together, that's oftentimes how we learn. So I think about the impact of like our grade level pieces have had this year with our Into Math implementation, when you got all fifth grade teachers who are struggling through the same content and figuring out how they're going to best approach that to have some measurable goals and outcomes for our students. And then our access to information, resources, and technology tools. This comes in a lot of different platforms. So we want to make sure that we are providing a variety of library media tools, again, piggybacking off of that library plan, and IT platforms to support our digital learning, creativity, communication. Again, that's strategic plan language. So what does this look like in schools? When we talk about this idea of library media tools, we have digital platforms that are used where kids can access resources 24/7. They're vetted, they're safe. Brendan kind of leads that work and goes through a lot of those pieces. And again, some of the companies automatically do that for us. Like I think about Swank as like a digital media player that everything is licensed and it's not a teacher pulling up a Disney Plus or Netflix or something like that. We own those licenses. So those are some very specific things that we use. Our digital learning platforms, we have Scholastic at K-5, Into Math K-5, Study Sync is one of our bigger ones at the 6-12 level. Focusing on that student collaboration. Cami, which if you're not familiar with Cami, we'll talk about that. Schoology is an opportunity for that. We have students that are using Seesaw, and then they're able to create that communication and digital literacy skills through those platforms as well. And then our district also providing student information systems, super important, device management, which it's probably been like a decade, maybe. I think about like Destiny and things like that.
Yeah, it's probably been over 10 years.
Yeah,
since
so we've had Destiny for about 10 years where we're actually like checking.
We've had Destiny for 13 years.
So checking out a device to a student, so we know that belongs to that student. When they are moving from grade to grade, we collect the device. We're making sure everything's all there. And then we'll talk about Senso as well, as that's a new platform that we're proposing.
Okay, financial stability and efficiency, some goals there. Provide the necessary resources to support instruction and business needs of the district. And what that looks like is the instructional resource we provide is Into Math, Scholastic, Study Sync, curriculum development, the technology infrastructure, Seesaw, Schoology. Another goal is appropriate measures will be put in place that will decrease breakage and keep the fleet of devices functioning at high instructional level. So we have cases on the iPads K through 5. We just put cases on the Chromebooks at the intermediate level, and we're going to monitor and see how that goes. And we're looking in the tech plan, we're proposing that we'll buy cases for the Chromebooks at the high school, but we're probably going to hold off until we get new Chromebooks. And when we do the refresh of the Chromebooks, we'll get cases at that time and we'll review. So we also have device management systems, Destiny, and then we got, the repair, the technology does the repair and replacement and monitoring evaluation.
I'm gonna pause for questions if anybody has any, because I've already gone through a lot of.
You just mentioned Chromebooks. Aren't we looking at going all Chromebook or all Apple?
No, this is for student devices.
Oh, my bad, sorry. Oh, my goodness, sorry.
Should have clarified that. Sorry, student devices.
So we didn't buy cases for the high school Chromebook?
No, we just bought 6-8 cases that, there's a slide on here that I believe it's 87% of Chromebook breakage comes from the intermediate school.
Uh-huh.
So Chromebook cases were purchased 6-8 this year.
I can't. We should have bought cases like when we bought the devices. To me, that's just like when I buy a device, I buy a case. I buy a phone, doesn't matter, like you buy a case. It just seems like a smart thing to do. So I know that it was something that was changed for elementary originally because we had such breakage. 2017 is when Brian and I just started on the board. And I remember that, but I thought we were getting cases for all our devices as we went forward from that, based on that information that we had. So yes, high school kids might be more responsible, but at the same time, stuff gets dropped, books get landed on top of things. And so I'm just surprised that we hadn't done that initially. So that's a comment, not a question.
I just have,
Oh, sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
I just have a quick question about Seesaw and Schoology. I know that we were originally going to go to one platform, so parents would just be able to have information in one platform. Did we just decide on those two? I know Seesaw's for younger. So are those the two that we are mainly using?
Yeah. There's a couple schools that purchase other platforms for like parent communication.
Yeah.
I think that's what she's getting at. 'Cause I think
Are we still trying to work on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can add in here too.
You're
We
talking
didn't
like
have that
class
conversation at
dojo
the
and
tech plan piece.
Yeah. We gotta.
No, but we,
Parents are like, how many?
Yeah.
To be a lot.
Yeah, because some use Class Dojo, some use Seesaw, and
Right.
it's just,
yep, so we've been talking with our principals on aligning around that. The last meeting that I had with them last month about this topic, all of them were on board with Seesaw being, it's currently used in 6 of the 9 as the primary communication resource with families. And the benefit of Seesaw is you can also, students and teachers could do a lot of sharing of student work with families very easily and regularly. And so we are working in collaboration with our principals on that, because that's feedback we've heard from families as well. So that would be a byproduct of this.
Yeah, we have a slide later that'll talk about, we're kind of going to move forward with proposing some options with that, so.
This is every parent on the board.
Any other questions? All right, you can continue.
Okay. All right, so some district-wide platforms that we currently use, one of them is Kami, and that is used 6 through 12 student and teachers. And what that is that is a Chrome extension, and it allows for editing of PDFs, and the students can use it on their Chromebooks. We purchased it in 2020, and it also allows teachers to provide feedback, typing, audio, or video. The newest platform that we just started with is Senso, and that's going to be grades 6 through 12. and that is device monitoring and management platform for the Chromebooks. It's something that teachers have been clamoring with for a long time. We've experimented with a couple and have not had good results. We investigated a little further. Tested one program, didn't work, and we've landed on Senso. It was pretty well received at Frank Lloyd Wright, which was our pilot school. This allows teachers to view student screens in Chromebooks. Works very similar to the Apple Classroom on the iPad, so they can actually see all their student devices. It pulls data from Skyward, so a teacher can go into their class and all the student Chromebooks will be listed there. They can go into individual ones. They can share the screen. They can just comment on it. It's like, you know, why are you on this YouTube video? You should be off and give the student an option to do their own self-control. If not, they can actually close the browser. It'll use geolocation to support safeguards, online monitoring of student access. And like I said, we piloted at Frank Lloyd Wright and that went, they were very pleased with that. So we're proposing, or we are rolling that out out of the technology fund that we'll be rolling that out to monitor the Chromebooks.
And like Kevin said, this is us only for 612 because we have Apple Classroom already at K5 or same capability that's already just built in. All right, so Jane had just brought this up. So one of our recommendations is like in terms of an LMS is to support Schoology for 612. This integrates, this is a Power School and Power School PL, which is a professional learning database that we're hitting the ground running with. And this allows for synchronous and asynchronous teaching. This is, we adopted this in August of 2020. It's an LMS, and then this allows for like submission of assignments, again, parent visibility, things like that. We are recommending a move to Seesaw Premium, as this is more of a streamline for a K5 end user. So like that UX or user experience is really more for a kindergartner through fifth grader. This again allows for some asynchronous and synchronous options. This captures learning, allows for parent visibility. I know that it kind of seems like some of our parents on the board have seen these before. And this allows for teacher feedback. I've been in a lot of videos in the background of Seesaw lately, as I've seen kids out in the hallway recording themselves, like working on a math problem and talking about how they're solving that. That's going to go home to parents. I was at a couple schools last week where they're all lined up in the hallway, and I was just like, oh boy, I'm going to be in every single one of these videos. We have 5 schools already that are paying for this out of their building budget. So they also have they're going to have some really neat, that's a really bad word. They're going to have some neat updates. They're going to have some really great updates that are coming over the summer that are allow for, like almost instantaneous feedback around students reading to improve their literacy pieces. I just had a meeting with their one of their reps like 2 weeks ago. It's still, they're not ready to release it yet, but it'll be released this summer. So that is one of our suggestions. And Alyssa's been working with principals on this, and any conversation that I've had with principals, they're like, wait, you're going to put that in the tech plan? So I'm going to get that money back in my budget. They're like, that is amazing. So they're really excited about that. And again, professional development too, super important, because we don't want to invest in these tools and then not invest in the user or the people, also on the leader part, and then on the teacher user piece as well. Okay. So we're going to hardware.
So hardware peripherals that are supported district-wide. District-wide hardware peripherals, cases for Chromebooks 912. The Chromebooks are 80% of all help desk hardware tickets, combined 6 to 12 students and staff. 11% were iPads and 0.5% were teacher computers. So this is a proposal that we're proposing that will go 912. It's currently Chromebook cases are 6.8, and we want to move that 912, but we weren't sure we wanted to invest right away in Chromebook cases for the older Chromebooks if we end up replacing them with the tech plan in a year or two. So that's kind of our thinking right now. If we want to, this is one of the reasons we're having this meeting, kind of talk through things. If you think that's a higher priority and we got to move it up, the problem is if we buy the cases now, in 2 years, if we replace the Chromebooks, we'll be buying all new cases for the Chromebooks. So there is a cost there. So that's kind of where we were thinking about that. We're also proposing headphones for elementary students. The K-5 platforms are heavily sound-based. Some of the kids bring their own headphones. Some of the schools buy headphones. We'd like to at least provide some amount of headphones that are in the classroom that so if students need them, they can. There would be headphones available for those that don't have them or they need those.
Yeah, this is, as we've been in instructional rounds, we've seen some students who are like kindergarten who are like, you know, they're listening to instruction or supposed to be listening to instructions on some of our platforms and they're just kind of staring at that screen. So being able to have the ability to like have some of those on hand, and it's not for every student, it's for about, we were talking about, you know, keeping in mind the fiscal impact is looking about 20% of the student population where they would be available, or if a student didn't have a pair, they could borrow them for the day, or, oh yeah, I took mine home, I accidentally threw them in my bag, or, oh, you know, we were going on a car trip, so I took mine with me. So we could have those there for students to use.
So are you saying that we no longer provide for 100%? Or is that put on like the materials list in the beginning of the school year? now?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I will say headphones get broken a lot.
a lot.
Yep.
Or
How are you-
cost, a lot.
They
What
get
do you think
broken.
about sanitizing?
I was just gonna,
Yeah,
My concern is, okay, yeah, I forgot mine in my bag or, you know, I left them at home, but like, I don't know if I want my kid to, I mean, how are we gonna control that? Because
Yeah,
we have been through.
when this was so these two items were probably two of the three highest items on the wish list piece. We went back and forth about looking at like earbuds that could just be used by that one student.
Yeah.
And then you're like, that goes in a Ziploc bag, the name goes on there, and
Yeah,
then that
right.
gets kept there. So that's kind of a thought. The other thought is the over the ear ones that then you can wipe down.
Can't do the
but-
earbuds. My
Yeah.
daughter
Yeah.
Can't do, she's a fifth grader and still has a problem with earbuds.
Yeah, so we put in a budget number for those, factoring about $10 a piece for headphones. You know, you think 7-8 years ago, you could go to the dollar store and you could get a set of headphones for $1. That's just not the case anymore. Yeah, the over the ear ones that we've purchased now through costs are like $8 a piece, but those break all the time too.
Yeah, there, we use them.
They break a lot.
Well,
That would be my concern.
Yeah. And so it's not intentional, you know,
Right,
it's
they're
like,
what's that?
Yeah. yeah.
You're trying to talk to me and then they
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my daughter had 3 pairs in 3 years of school.
Yeah.
So, and she wouldn't tell me that they were broken. She would just get like tape and wrap it around. So she had this one with like hanging, you know, I just hold it against me here. Like, what do you think? So, but that's my concern. Like if we have ones for school,
Yeah.
you know, what happens if they broke? Okay, well, they're not really repairable
Yeah.
at that point. Like once the plastic is snapped, it's snapped.
Yeah.
And so, that's where earbuds to me make more sense. The fact that the thing that breaks them usually is when you're trying to pull them out of the thing, that thing breaks, but they're cheaper in that regard.
Yeah.
So maybe having over the ear only for younger ages, and then for the older ages where the earbuds might be more apt to fit in their ears at that point, to try and abrogate the amount of breakage, because again, it's not useful to the child if it's broken.
Yep.
Or the you know, teacher that's trying to get the lesson across.
We're tangled up.
Yeah, and we've tried to use cost just because they have lifetime warranty.
Yeah.
And they stopped
Yeah.
allowing that to happen where you could bring them in. So we actually would bring them in to the cost store because they're in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And they would replace them for us. We just have to give a number beforehand.
Sure.
But technically in their small print, it says not for schools. But they were letting us do it anyway.
Oh.
So we could also, you know, explore that option.
And I thought, didn't one of the innovation coaches say they are accepting them now?
They are now. So during COVID, they stopped accepting them because they didn't want people coming in. But you can ship them back. So you just pay shipping. But we are just lucky enough that we could go in person because they're right around the corner.
Mm. I mean, I see the need for it, definitely.
Yeah.
And not everyone can provide it, even though it is on the list. And obviously, if the kid can't hear what's going on in the lesson, that's not very helpful for the child to learn. So let's try to be creative with how we solve that problem. And see if we can build some flexibility into the plan so that if we're like, oh, we did this, geez, we're just getting 10 a week that are down out of the dust because they got busted. That we can pivot and do something else. Because again, having something they can do right then and there may or may not be possible if they broke it, or they are going to be sitting here with holding one up or something so they can hear.
Yeah, and I think in the slide we proposed, I think we were thinking like maybe 20% of purchasing, about 20%. And maybe we take and have them and they go to the school, and then the students that don't bring one, they get put in a bag labeled with that student's name, and we provide, the headphones for them. And then, keep an eye on breakage. Maybe, like you said, maybe we look at earbuds for the older group. So
something where they come in and like, oh, I couldn't, we couldn't get one, whatever reason. And then the teacher they'd be housed in a central location at the school. And then teacher say, hey, I need 5 or whatever. And then they could get checked out basically from that stock, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I appreciate the flexibility. That's you're trying to like find a vendor and it's like, okay, what's your price point? Is it $8? Is it $12? Is it $6? It's like, it's an interesting market, I guess, in terms of headphones.
I mean, if cost is gonna
Yeah.
allow those would replace them for us to allow us to do it, obviously you don't spend more money on the thing, because the breakage is without a doubt going to happen. And so
They
I
are
think
more
that,
expensive. That's kind of why a lot of people hesitate on it.
right. But if it's basically, I could keep getting, if it costs 3 times the amount of a $10 one or whatever, okay, well, if it breaks 3 times, then I've already gotten my money's worth out of it by getting new ones back. That we can use. And it's an additional expense that we're continually spitting out on.
Again, it's late, but I know headphones can be a real issue with tech. And I know that one year we tried so 80% of the parents supply them. And at the end of the year, we would just ask parents if you'd like to donate them, because many times they'll just buy the kids a new pair for the next year. And then we would collect the donated ones, and then those would be our spares. And we had quite a few. We would sanitize them, and it is, something we could look at.
Yeah.
I also wonder, just throwing it out there, but what about possibly looking at investing in some nicer, higher quality headphones where they're not going to break because that the kids that throw it? I mean, I work on an inpatient unit where they wear headphones to help with the sounds, and they get thrown around quite a bit, and they're okay. And so I'm just wondering if we can, maybe that's an option, is if, we're investing in some quality ones that, aren't going to snap, because, if it's $30 for a quality pair, and I know it's going to last the whole year compared to the, the 10 pair we go through, because snap, because I know that's the biggest thing, is it's the, a lot of times the pulling up is if you find the ones that are more flexible, maybe that's an option too.
Okay.
The only other thing, not the headphones, but the Chromebook cases. So what is in the plan for when Chromebooks would be refreshed?
I believe it is 26, 27.
It's in a couple of slides.
Yeah, it would be 26. This year, we're going to do, so the start of next, because when I say this year, the 24-25 school year, the plan is to do teacher computers. 25-26 would be iPads, 26-27 would be Chromebooks.
So we're still 3 years out.
So it'd be another 2 years.
So the question would be of how much of the 87% breakage is from 9 to 12? That's the question. And then that determines if in 2 years' time, you're going to have that percent every year of additional breakage from 9 to 12. So is it cost effective to that cases that you're going to have to replace in 3 years?
Yeah. And if we're looking at, when we look at a 612 Chromebook refresh, it's about 3,400 Chromebooks, and we were looking at cases that are a little over $20 a piece. So you're talking about $65,000-$70,000.
Okay. Then how much does it cost to replace them and repair them? That's your juxtaposition.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it is cost effective. I don't have enough information to make that decision, but if we're talking 2 full school years more, do the math.
Yeah.
And then let us know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just want to be clear too, putting cases on it isn't going to solve a lot of those issues because a lot of them are keyboard related as well. So it's not just broken screens. It's just
a lot of different things, so.
Yeah, and if they put something in the Chromebook and close it, you're still gonna crack the screen, you know, it's hopefully protecting it from the droppage.
Sure.
And things like that.
Well, looking at that too, I guess is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so kind of summary there, our current solutions versus our recommended solutions. So current solution, we have Schoology K-12, looking at Schoology 612, Seesaw Premium K-5. Keeping Cami, that's the same. We currently have no solution for monitoring 612 Chromebooks, so the recommendation is for Senso. We currently have Chromebook cases 6.8. Look at Chromebook cases 612 and purchasing with the 2026 912, again, looking at the information on what percentage of those breakages from secondary or high school kids. We have no current solution in terms of a student not having headphones. And we would look at headphones, again, 20%. So you're looking, depending on the cost, we have a budgeted number for cost and then around 20%. And then one of our other pieces that we will talk through is currently we have like you walk into your typical classroom, you have you have a projector, kind of like the one right there. You have speakers, and then if you're in a school that has Macs, you have an Apple TV. Our recommendation, I think this was probably the number one piece of when we did our with our teachers, when we kind of did like that, what's your like top priority is to have an interactive panel. So that's in there. We'll cover that here in a second. So our next piece is when we're talking about a teacher refresh. So looking at currently, as Kevin talked about in some of his slides, we have multiple teachers in the same building on different devices. This has happened ever since Lincoln closed 8 years ago, and some of those people went to FLW, and then you had the closure of Madison, Longfellow, and Lane. Those people have kept their devices and gone to other buildings. So we have buildings that are, 75% PC, 25% Mac. We'll get into numbers here in a little bit, but one of the things that we talked about as a committee was what are the advantages of having every teacher on the same hardware platform? So, and this is, when going all the way back to 2017, when we gave buildings the choice, that's kind of where that history started. And it's so it goes back almost 7 years ago. But for our thoughts as a committee is we're looking at consistency. You can read all the bullet point pieces. So that consistency of having everybody in the employee group with the same hardware, the same software, it's easier to troubleshoot for IT. Compatibility, ensuring that all the applications, when we adopt new software platforms, that they're compatible with the hardware that we already have. We can also, work on our training and support, as we identified in one of our goals is the idea that we need to continually professionally develop people. As our tech plan is in terms of finances, we want to make sure that we are working with people to make sure that they have and are able to use their tools with what they need it for. We also are able to oftentimes get a better deal on purchasing as we're buying in bulk, and also maintaining that standard fleet can reduce overall support costs over time. And then again, the efficiency piece can easily share more resources, collaborate on projects, leading to increased efficiency for our staff. So when we're looking at this, we've got two options really that our teachers use currently. So currently about 30 to 35% of our staff uses a Dell PC. Can't read those ones over there, so I'm gonna go here. So we kind of listed out with one of our tech plan meetings, we listed out like all the pros of if everybody has a Dell, if everybody has a Mac, what are the cons of both of those? So some kind of highlights, I'm not going to go over every single one, but some things, some pros are it's a lower initial expense. So there's less of initial expense for the purchase of the computer. Again, one device, that's standard. We don't lose any, there's no peripheral loss. So there's no scanners that don't work or printers that don't work or anything that doesn't work. In terms of if you go to a PC for what we have currently at 612. Right now at 612, when you walk into a classroom, you're going to find a projector that's going to have a cable that is probably a VGA cable. So then you have to have a dongle in order to plug that into your Mac or your PC. We can upgrade PCs. That's one thing that we've been talking about. We can, in Kevin's department, they can crack that thing open and put in more RAM if we need it. It can run faster then. That is not something that is available on all devices. And then again, integration with new line panels, and we can make some repairs on site. Some of the cons are there's less money on buyback. So you got the lower initial expenses, but there's less money on the buyback. So our costs, when we look at trading in a device approximately 8 years from now, which is a cycle of a teacher computer, we use it typically for 8 years, 4 years with a teacher, and then we ship that to support staff after the 4 years. We'll get about $20 back for that device. We are not able to use Apple Classroom with a Dell PC. And again, going with 65 to 70% of our staff currently using a Mac, there's going to be some user discomfort for about 65 to 70% of our staff. And one thing that we've been having a debate as well and talking about is set up for Kevin and his department is that for a reimage and deployment of a singular computer, it takes about an hour. So if you factor that over 700, now you can do a lot of them at a time, but doing that 700 times, how often do you guys refresh?
Usually we try to refresh every year. Sometimes we'll skip a year, and when we refresh, we erase the device, make sure the latest OS is on there. We do try to push updates so that they do always have the latest OS and update the programs, but we do try to do a refresh at least every 2 years where we get the device and wipe it. So it's a little bit slower process with the PCs. With the new Macs, it's as simple as going in and erasing the device. And it really doesn't actually completely erase it. It just removes all of their data. And after 5 minutes, the user can log back into the Mac and it's working. Whereas the PC, we have to push the software back to it.
We would have a peripheral loss at K5. So because every K5 classroom right now and classrooms at Docky all have an Apple TV. So essentially we would no longer use those. So you're talking about $129 times roughly $350 between elementary teachers and Docky teachers. Again, we did the same exercise, pros and cons with MacBooks. One of the pros was we do get more money at buyback. So 8 years down the road, we'd see about $100 per device on a buyback. Again, the same, it's one device. We have teachers right now. I think there's some teachers that are using Macs that are like 10 years old from Lincoln, I believe. There's a couple people out there. But one of the pieces that is with Apple and MacBooks are that the operating system, it's an increased longevity. And then again, Kevin was just talking about the setup. We don't lose any peripherals, K-12. There's nothing that's lost, that's no longer functioning. And then again, one of the pieces as well is if we look at MacBooks for all teachers and we have 50% of our classrooms being outfitted with new line panels, we can take those Apple TVs and put those into the 50% of the classrooms that currently don't have any like streaming device, not streaming service, but streaming device. So right now, one of the feedback pieces that came out of the committee that we hear from secondary all the time is that they're tethered to a cable that is either taped to their desk or in and around their desk. So we would be able to take those Apple TVs from teachers that are getting new line panels and push those to 612 until we get all of our classrooms with the new line panels. Cons, it's a higher cost initially out of the box. There's hardware breakage. Typically those need to go to the Apple store. That's not something that we can just open up and fix ourselves. They're not upgradable, so we can't open that up and put more RAM in it. Kevin sent an email to our Apple rep the other day about why isn't that, like an option. That's kind of disappointing, as we're not really able to service a lot of those pieces. And then a con as well as on the new MacBooks, there's no USB-A or USB-B. So if you are using a peripheral, you would need a dongle, but also you're going to stream to your new line panel. So we don't need to buy a dongle for every teacher. You just need to have a couple for people who don't have new line panels, if that makes sense. Okay.
Unless you switch the Apple TVs, then you would.
Yes. Yeah. So if you put an Apple TV in a classroom, then you wouldn't need to have a dongle.
Yeah, so currently with the PCs, there's no good over the air with what we have with our projectors to basically project wirelessly, where the Macs can use the Apple TV and project wirelessly, so they're not cabled. Once we get the new line panels, those work really well with PCs and wireless. You don't need to be connected. So that'll be that would fix those PCs. But if we do go all Mac, the ones new line panels, the Mac will project wirelessly, and then we could move the Apple TVs into those classrooms that didn't, so that they would have the wireless projection, so they could move around the classroom without having the cable.
So again, we talked about the pros and cons of the initial cost. So this is kind of laid out here, both devices having 16 gigs of RAM. You can see the original cost and what the cost is operationally per year. This is keeping them for 8 years. So this is teacher has it for 4 years, then it gets passed to support staff. Usually we have a couple for like building subs, EAs, things like that. We are able to sell a bunch of our teacher fleet back after the 4 years, because you're talking about an employee group of like 700 to an employee groups of like 100.
Yeah, oh, it's okay. So one of the things about the MacBook is, speaking with Apple, tried to get, a better price, and they were not willing to negotiate on the newest version. And this is kind of where I come in, being on the tech plan. My thought is, if we were going to keep the Mac for 4 years and get rid of it and not use it, okay, we could probably buy an older chip. So Apple has their own chips out now, and they just released the M4 chip. That's not on any Macs. It's on the iPads that were just announced. But the Macs have the M3 chip that came out less than a year ago. So Apple was willing to deal on the M2 chip, which is a year or two older. And if we're going to be keeping the technology for 8 years, to me, it does not make sense to do that. They also said, well, the Macs run really well with 8 gig. And they do. I can't argue that. But again, to future-proof these devices, my strong recommendation is that we go to the 16 gig. One of my big disappointments with Apple is they charge a lot for 8 gig of RAM, but that's Apple. I think in the end, we can get the money back with the resale and the difference. And I think it's worth investing the extra money to have that RAM just to future-proof the device. So as from the technology standpoint, that's why I'm recommending that we do try to keep the Dell at 60. If we go with the Dell PC, we keep 16 gig. And if we go with the Mac, we put 16 gig in.
That's RAM?
RAM, correct.
What if you did 8 gigs of Dell and just bought 8 gigs yourself and put it in?
There was minimal difference. The Dell memory is cheap.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Yeah, you can buy it for $30. And when you buy, if you buy a Dell with 8 gig or you buy a Dell with 16 gig, the difference is nominal. It's like $20, $30, basically what it would cost us for a RAM chip. So there's no difference there. Where the problem comes in was the Mac. If you buy an 8 gig Mac,
there's no way to upgrade.
There's no way to upgrade it. And if you go from 8 gig to 16 gig, Apple wants to charge $170 for an 8 gig chip, which is crazy. And I expressed that very clearly to the Apple reps that I talked to. But that is one of the downsides to Apple. But again, with the resale value and everything, I believe you get your money back with the resale value. And the ones we have now are 8 gig. The pricing we had for the resale, the 20 gig and the 80 gig, I think those are somewhat deflated numbers because those are the older Intel chips. So they're kind of going out, you know, who knows what, when we go to resell new Macs that we buy now with the M3 chip, what they will be. I'm thinking they'll be worth more than $100, but you know, you don't know. Having the extra 8 gig from 16 gig, are we going to get our $170 back? No, but we will get extra money back because they do have more RAM.
What's the chip in the Dell?
That is it's a 13 Gen i5 Intel chip.
What does that mean?
Thank you. Just saying that. He said it like so matter of factly and you know, like. oh, I
Glad
see.
somebody else said it.
Yeah, Intel has gone to numbering. They have different generations. Currently, they're at the 13th gen. And they have like an i3, an i5, and an i9. So
i7,
i7, i9, i5 is kind of like right in the middle of the road. And we found that works very well. I believe our computers we have now are i5s. They're just probably 7th gen, 8th gen, they're older generation. And with each generation, that same thing with the Apple, they started out when they started going to, they used to use the Intel chips and they moved to their own silicone. They had M1s, M2s, M3s. And as they progress, they get faster, they run more efficiently, they use less power and so on. So.
i5's a cheap chip. So. Okay.
Good. Okay.
So again, did you review? We kind of broke it down. The operational cost per year, if we figure in what the original cost is, if we were to buy these computers, the resale value of what our old ones are, I don't know what the resale value is, but what they'll be in 8 years. But based on what it is now, we're at basically $135 a year operating cost for the Mac. The PC, we'd be at about 125.50.
All right. So 612 current device usage, kind of broken down by school. We did some surveys with some staff and looked in Destiny to see which devices are checked out to staff as well. So it was a good opportunity for us to make sure that we have like the device number that you're assigned is what you have in Destiny. So that was good for us. So Franklin, right, we looked at 62 different staff members. 12 people use a district issued MacBook and 10 people use their personal MacBook rather than a district device. So they were issued a Dell because they teach at FLW and that device is not used at all. And when we looked at adding in teachers, student services and admin, they looked at 77 total staff and there's 75 people reported that if they could switch tomorrow to a MacBook, they would switch, given the fact that they would have received professional development. Which again, one of our goals in the tech plan is to make sure that we're including professional development, both synchronously and asynchronously. When we looked at Hale, we looked at 83 different staff. So we have 8 people that are using a district issued MacBook. No people are using personal devices, whether it's a Mac or a Dell. Sometimes you do find people who are using their own PC as well, because they have an i9 instead of an i5 chip. I would assume. I don't know. But and in the fall of 23, when we sent out the needs assessment, there's 47 people who responded from Hale and 30 people responded that a PC was most preferable and 17 people responded that a Mac was the most preferable device. So that's about, I don't know, 30, we'll go 30 out of 50. So 60% of the respondents versus 40% of the respondents. When we look,
Can you explain the number to me? So if it's 83 staff, we have 8 that use a MacBook, so that means the balance use a PC?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I just want to make sure I understand.
And then at Central, we have 72 staff. 2 people use a district issued MacBook. 1 person uses their own personal computer, which is a Mac. And in their needs assessment survey, they had 43 people respond and 26%. So you're a little bit more than half, 60%. Again, probably very similar to Hale. Responded that PC was most preferable and 14 said that Mac was most preferable. And then looking at West, we had 34 staff, 5 are using district issued MacBooks, 2 are using personal MacBooks. So it's about 20% of the staff. Their respondents to the initial needs assessment was lower, only having 34 staffs. I think there's only like 3 or 4 respondents. So it's really like negligible data. This is kind of so when we sent out the needs assessment, this is all respondents K-12. So we also threw out there, because there's a lot of districts that are around us that issue Chromebooks for staff members as well, rather than a PC or a Mac. So we threw that in there as an option. That was clearly the least preferable. There's 247 respondents in here. So you can see that that's like over 170. When you look at K-12 laptop out of 247, most preferable 86. And then you can see Mac there as well. But again, we have that 612 breakdown because again, these could be a lot of elementary people. So you want to like tell that whole story. So when we look at, we're kind of like, we think about how many different recommendations we can make as a committee. And we kind of nail it down to like a top 2. And that's why we want your feedback. So the first one was, we're going to meet here again in a week. And on Tuesday, May 21st, we can send out a sign up essentially for teachers, and they're choosing their device. And then what we could, our recommendation is that any new teachers that come along, they would receive a MacBook. And then we would have kind of, as I've been calling it, like a long runway to a shift to every teacher employee group member being on a Mac in 2028. The other recommendation that we came up as a committee is shift everybody to Macs next year. And everybody's on one device. Other committee recommendations that came forward are this one was number 1 when we did any of the wish list items. Was like we purchased a number of interactive panels with common school funds. So schools have had them in their libraries, and teachers like will bring their whole class to the library and they're like, this is awesome, I want one. So our recommendation as a committee is that 100% of our classrooms by 26-27 school year will have an interactive panel in them, whether it's mounted to the wall or mobile. And then one of our other recommendations, either way, is that we shift teachers to one device in the next adoption cycle. So our next teacher adoption cycle is 2024, and then it would go to 2028. But everybody being on one device by 2028. And again, this work by the committee, this is like difficult work. This is why we have split devices now. And so we're trying to build that piece for our teachers, that everyone is supported with the professional development that they need for anything, whether it's a hardware or a software that we're gonna issue them. And then the last piece, again, we talked about these before, recommended solutions. Schoology 612 Seesaw, K5 re-up of Cami 612, and then Senso, as Kevin talked about, and then those Chromebook and the headphone purchases. So questions and feedback.
Questions from the board? Mr. Burns.
What would it cost for professional development for 30 to 35% of the staff?
So a lot of the professional development either way, because we're gonna like I said in the committee, we recognize that there needs to be professional development either way. If I got handed a PC, if somebody who's a PC user got handed a Mac, we still have to design that professional development. And we as a committee don't feel that there's a cost to that. That is like what we, that strategic plan language is that's job embedded professional development. So we have to have you receive that professional development during your time. Now, just like Alyssa had spoke to, we got people who like to get out there and get in early. So we have like new line panel training this summer. We'll have whatever the science adoption is this summer. So we'll have that professional development for people who want to get in that. But like in terms of like design and offering, that's something that we feel that we can do in-house. And we'd have to provide that professional development on both sides of the coin. So the cost would be this, like the same. Like in terms of design and things like that.
So no matter what, 100% of the staff would be trained one way or the other.
Yeah, correct. It's one of our goals and in one of our pieces is that we need to provide more professional development for staff.
Right, I get that. I guess the thing that I'm looking at here is with the breakdown that's presented here. When we saw this in committee, it was something like $150,000 difference to do all Mac versus like all PC. And so seeing it here broke down the way that it is. Yeah, over a 9-year lifespan, we have a $9 difference between them. And so then it comes down to what are the extra pieces that come into play for us to train people. And the reason I ask is if we don't train people by saying, because what I don't see up there is a recommendation to keep people with their preferred device. Because I think if there's a negligible difference between, you know, the $9 over an 8-year life, why would we invest time in PD in order to switch everyone over when there's really a visceral reaction to MacBooks and PCs and what you like? I understand that they're user friendly. I'm not one that finds them that way. And like I would be very uncomfortable even with PD working in a Mac platform. So like if it's a negligible difference of $9 over 8 years, why don't we recommend that we allow everyone to have the PC or the Mac that
Like their choice, that's recommendation one.
isn't recommendation one that there's the intended shift on everybody
I see.
being there by 2028?
So you're saying recommendation one, but then eliminate the last bullet.
Right.
Whatever you feel comfortable.
Well, there were other things besides the monetary value that you said, if everyone went to a Mac, there were
Yeah.
specific things,
Yeah.
right? What were
Right, if you
those?
go back.
So when we talked in committee is the ease of use, reliability, we talked about that with the operating system, security. That's Kevin with like built-in encryption and secure boot processes, things like that. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, I mean, the PCs they have BitLocker. There's things on there, but the Mac in general has been more secure with viruses and malware. We put the stuff on just in general. They can get infected as well. You know,
Isn't that more because they don't have as much of a market share, so they don't impact as many people, so there's not as much bang for your buck?
It probably is, yes.
So
Yeah.
like, I mean, these pieces of ease of use and reliability, I think those are a matter of where your user experience. So yeah, in your comfort level, longevity, I mean, yeah, Mac has that piece out there, but I mean, you go out there, you can find somebody with a Commodore 8086 that's still running. So,
And worth more than a Mac, probably.
so I mean, I think because then this would, if there's no other difference between these besides $9, then it comes down to that PD. And while we say there's no cost, it is hours of time that's required to be taken up doing that versus doing something else. So there is a cost because that time you don't get to do your other planning or your other design or your other stuff. You're relearning how to use a computer. So if it comes down to $9, why would we force the shift?
I think one of the pieces that we were looking at is from the committee standpoint of everybody having one device. Like that, this is, again, we kind of talked about like, this goes back to like 2017 when we let buildings choose. And now you have like an innovation coach who's like, okay, am I walking into a PC room that I'm trying to help support? Or am I walking into a Mac room that I got to help support? Because those are two different things that they need to know as well. So I think if we go back a couple slides, our idea of one device is with the consistency and then being able to train on one device, being able to do all of these things. Our goal was that we get everybody to one device.
And I think the reason we did also the option where we give them the option to choose that very first year is there's probably some teachers that are going to be retiring in 2 years that probably don't want to change. That also gives the teachers that, okay, I'm just not ready yet. I'm going to stick with my PC, but I'm comfortable, because I'm comfortable with it. But I'm still going to be here in 8-10 years. But in 4 years, I'm going to have a chance to work on some Macs, maybe test them out and learn a little bit more. And in 4 years, I'll definitely be ready. And then there's going to be those that I already know the Mac. I want to switch to a Mac, or I've always wanted to use the Mac. I'm willing to learn, and we'll go through.
And just as another category, you'll have those people that it's 4 years and I hate this Mac and I don't want to use it. So like, you'll have the spectrum.
Yeah.
And we have.
No, I was just talking,
Share something.
yeah. There's like a utilization of just our resources as well. So a lot of this came up because our high school teachers wanted to be untethered and they're talking about their dongles breaking all the time, or they have to, they want to move around the room and check on students. So a lot of this also came up because we can, with the new line panels, then start shifting some of the resources we already have and not have to buy more resources to put some of those Apple TVs in the high schools. But then you would have to have a Mac to make that work as well. And we're also not factoring in the tech department spending an hour on every PC every single year when we can do that remotely with the Macs as well. So there's a lot of cost savings that we're getting that's not also up there from the other side. That makes sense.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of scripts like on the Mac side that I can leverage scripts to update the software, whereas it'll automatically download the latest version. There may be some stuff out there for PC. I know I manage the Mac, so I'm very familiar with managing the Macs and building that. And it automatically gets the latest version. So I just have a thing in self-service, and whenever Firefox comes out and there's an update, they can go to self-service and it'll automatically update and it'll get the latest version. Whereas the PC, we have to download the latest version of Firefox, put it into SCCM, build that thing. So there's the time frame of managing, just keeping the software up to date as well. And they have to be managed because we don't allow, again, for security purposes, we don't allow users to be administrators on their devices because we're less likely to get infected. It's not foolproof, but definitely less likely. So that's a switch we made a few years ago where the users are not administrators.
Mr. Keller?
I get the idea that it makes sense to go to one device. I think that just makes things more convenient, just more flexibility overall in terms of what people are able to do and where they're able to move around and so on and so forth. I think the reality is in most environments, your employer usually just provides one device, right? A lot of times you don't get a choice. It just kind of is what it is, and you adapt one way or the other, whether you're going to get trained, right? I know my company, it's just PC. I've only ever used a PC. However, if I went somewhere and they gave me a Mac, then I'm going to figure it out, right? I've learned 4 new platforms and softwares this year. So there's always something new that you have to learn. But to the point that was made previously, you're going to have some teachers that are retiring in the next couple of years, right? I think I like option 1. I think it gives us a little bit of flexibility. It gives people time to kind of get used to that if they are really set in that PC mindset and just kind of scared of that transition. But I think it makes sense ultimately at some point to get to that one device. So from that standpoint, I think option 1 makes the most sense.
Ms. Kaiser?
I've heard this now twice in 2 committees, and both times I was adamant that I hate Macs. That hasn't changed at all. But I think, but looking at the broad picture of an entire school district, recommendation 1 lends to us to have more money buyback for the computers, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It gets us, teachers can have a shift knowing that this is coming in a couple of years. I think it'll ease people in and with a better buy-in. If you're saying we're gonna switch by 2028, but it's not like tomorrow I'm getting a new Mac. And I think for me, I would take that time to then start learning about the Macs in the district and learning how to work with one. Because like I said, I'm not a fan of Mac. We're an Android family in our house, but as a larger district, thinking at a whole of, is this cheaper for this, cheaper for that, whatever, I would go with recommendation 1.
Ms. Deal?
Yeah,
your hand raised before.
no,
No, you're good.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Are there any softwares that don't run at max that we currently use?
Yes, one that I'm aware of, and we'll have to accommodate that, and we actually already accommodate that, and that is AutoCAD. The teachers that use AutoCAD can't use a standard Dell teacher PC. We have to buy one with a better graphics card and so on. So they're already getting a special device. They would be excluded. They would have a PC because they need it. If they're teaching AutoCAD, they would get that device.
That's the only one?
That's the only one that I'm aware of that does not run that is being used.
Okay. So we mentioned about the Apple TVs moving to other, things. But we also mentioned that we're gonna get new line panels in every classroom by 26, 27. So that's really, to me, a moot point. That's a 2-year problem. That will be fixed in 2 years. So, the issue with tethering goes away in 2 years' time, regardless of what direction, what option that we go in. So I think that's important also to know. If it is a big issue with staff, the tethering piece is a big issue with staff, then in 2 years' time it goes away, or you prioritize those staff for the new line panels, and then the Mac, the Mac people keep the Mac ones, they're not tethered and they can do what they want to do. My biggest issue with Macs is the part that they don't let you do your upgrades, they don't let you do your repairs. They control the costs, how much they charge for that. I don't see that ever going down. Everything goes up in price, right? PCs cost more too, but the percent over time is higher for Macs versus PC when you go from year over year cost for materials. My concern is that if we commit as a district to Macs long term, we've committed to a huge amount of money. And now everyone is on Mac. Well, now everyone's on Mac. So now we have to put in this contract every year for hundreds of thousands of dollars every time we need to do a refresh. And that cost can increase exponentially as we continue down this path. That's my biggest concern in all this, is the long-term viability of being able to do this, to go to one device and then having to end up switching because it's cost prohibitive to continue to do so. The $9 becomes $90 in that time frame. And so I think that number one, there's absolutely no way that we should be forcing people to Macs. I've used both in my time as a scientist. There's a lot of places that only use Macs. Like Macs have software that actually only run on Macs. You have to use them in certain science things. And so I've been in that position. So I've been back and forth in my life. But it's not just about what I like or dislike. Like I would always use a PC because I'm familiar with it. And a lot of people will pick that familiarity over anything else because there's that work, that effort to learn how to do it more. That's tough. At the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do. I'm not worried about that. I'm really, for me, from a district's perspective, long term, I'm worried about the cost. Macs cost more. They've always cost more. And I think they're always going to cost more. And so to commit to this, that's my biggest concern. And to not have an out from that once you've been 2028, when we're like, yep, we're all Macs. Okay, well, now we're committed. They got us by the short ones, if you will. And so they could charge whatever they want to be able to continue down our path as operating as a district. So that's my biggest concern with doing this. Now, I understand they're saying that 70% of staff already being, that's because the vast majority of staff are in elementary schools and they've been using Macs for years and years and years. So we're only looking at secondary at this point, and Lane was also all using Macs because they were using iPads. So it's FLW, our high schools, and West Milwaukee that we're really looking at for this change.
Yeah, Dotke is Mac right now. They're a Mac, but it's still the two big high schools and
so we're looking at
schools.
The 30% is really mainly the traditional high schools. And from the survey results, they seem to also prefer the PCs. They would rather keep the PC and not switch to it.
Significant.
So, I mean, for me, between these two recommendations, one is the only one I would even consider from my personal perspective. And I agree that the whole shifting the back in 2028, I think that should be a analyze as we go situation. So I don't think that it should be like, yes, we're definitely going to do this. I think we need to look and see what happens in the market with these PCs as we keep moving forward. Because yes, maybe you get more for the the Mac, but maybe you'll maybe also get more for the PC. You know, so like it might even out in the end as far as what your buybacks are going for. But for me, I remember seeing the dollar amounts we spent on iPads. And I understand this is for staff, so breakage, I'm not, those sorts of things are less of a concern compared to students, but these things cost a lot of money. And we are severely limited. How much money do we spend on sending stuff to Apple to get repaired every year? Like, if that's a good number to know, like how much repair costs, because we can't do it, that we have to send to Apple to do it for us.
Yeah, for teacher devices, there's not a lot of teacher breakage, which is a good thing. So it has not been huge. You put everybody on a Mac, we're probably going to have a few more Mac breakages, and it's really the screens that we can't repair. And pretty much anything on them, it's got to go to the Apple store. And yep, there's a big cost to that. That's definitely one of the downsides. You mentioned price difference. Just for right now, if we were to buy iPads and cases, we're at $365.95 for an iPad. If we were to buy Chromebooks, we're at $325, and you add in a $25 case, we're at $350. So you're at $350 versus like $365 between an iPad and a Chromebook. For PCs, we were $1179 versus $1024. So there's a bigger difference, but then there's also the resale difference.
Right,
With that. So it doesn't make up for that amount. But that is, and I ran some figures just so you're aware. So if we stuck with what we had, where the 2 high schools, 2 intermediate schools had PCs and everybody else had Macs like they did, the cost difference is $50,000. But with the resale value, it knocks it down. With the additional resale value, it knocks it down to $24,000. The difference between going all PC, which I don't think is even really an option based on what we have in place already, and it just doesn't make sense with the iPads, the Apple Classroom. The difference is $110,000, but with the resale value, that knocks it down. The difference in resale value, that knocks it down to about $53,000. On a total of, so all Macs were at $837. All PCs is $727. The mix is $787 rounded. So just so you got some numbers on, what the difference is there.
So, I mean, I think the recommendation one makes sense. I don't think forcing people is the way to go. And I think that, I personally wouldn't want to commit and say, yeah, in 2020, we're going to be all Mac.
So maybe reword that instead of shift to Mac in 2028, propose shifting to Mac, or evaluate shifting to Mac, reevaluate shifting to Mac.
The viability of doing that, because.
Couple other questions?
Do you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just. I don't know if this is really a super big issue because I too am more of an Android, or I am an Android person. So let's just be real. But so like with the MacBooks and stuff, my only other thing is just thinking about this is with like the repairs, because it would have to go to an Apple store. If a teacher has a repair, that is something that has to be done. And now it has to be sent out. Are we gonna have extras on hand and stuff? I mean, I'm assuming we would, but I'm just thinking, I know that can take some time.
We usually have a spare device, or we'll get them a Chromebook to use temporarily if there's not like specific software. A lot of things they do is web-based, so they can get by with a Chromebook for a day or two. There's usually pretty quick turnaround time. We've had to deal with that in the past,
Okay,
but there's usually a spare device that they can use.
Well, that's why we keep some of the older devices around.
okay.
Yeah, like we mentioned before, when you have your teacher employee group devices, we purchase, like, we're projected to like 710 people. But when you look at like EAs, substitutes, when we keep those devices for years 5 through 8, you're keeping like 100 of those and selling 600 back.
Okay.
Which is not $100 on that buyback.
Right.
That's like 400 or something, I think.
The ones we currently have were, well, you had that number. I think it was, Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, that was in the slide show.
Any other
Jane, did you?
questions or thoughts?
At
Well, he
this
looked
point,
that up.
at this point, I've heard the presentation 3 times, so I've had some time to digest it.
I appreciate that.
And, I truly believe that, we should just leave it an optional thing. I don't think we should go to one. I don't think your reasons are strong enough for me to really say, okay, it's worth all this effort or all the money. I think you should just leave it for now. That would be what I would say. So at this point, I wouldn't support either one.
I would ask, I guess my other thing would be, I understand when you say it's an hour to redo the computers. So I guess what are we looking at money wise? So labor wise, I mean, how is that compared in? So I mean, how many people is that taking? How much really is that? Because I'm just thinking about like, you know, where I work, it's like we're all on a PC platform. I've never, I mean, I don't know why I guess I'm trying to get an idea as like if that's impacting it too. Like, are we employing one extra person just to do this? Or I mean, 700 divided by 24, I mean, essentially, you know, you're saying it's taking, if it's 700 employees, you're resetting all of them and it's an hour.
Yeah, it's really an hour if you're doing an individual one and working
Okay.
on it. But when we do it in a group, so there's 8 of us in the tech department. Usually when we're doing the refreshes, we all get together and we do it together. And we can get
So,
usually also, so it's not, you know, it's not a full hour, but the max, if you compare one Mac to one PC, you can do one PC in about an hour, whereas you can do one Mac in about 5 to 10
I
minutes.
guess what I'm getting at is this more convenience for you all? How much are you, I mean, like, are you sitting around for like, we have to take out 2 weeks of our thing, or is this literally like we sit around for 2 days and we slam it out and it's done? Because I mean, 10 minutes, yes, I get it's convenient, but you know, price wise, I agree, like Max, that's a big commitment. I have an iPhone. And Apple's always like fighting, you know, I'm happy now that my new phone, I can actually use, what is it? The regular cord, the generic cord. That's because the EU came in and said something, but like down the line, we're going to be like, oh, you need this for this and this and that. And how, you know, accessories are the ones that what adds up. It's not all that is special accessories and stuff. Whereas I can go and get a PC, I can go get generic, you know, $10 charger, you know, from Walmart. You know, I can't do that necessarily with, well, now I can with my new iPhone, but like old stuff, you know, you have to go and buy specialized things. So, I mean, that was a big thing where like families were fighting to get 2 chargers when we were doing, you know, we couldn't even give out 2 chargers to families, like, you know, because we were losing so many during like COVID and stuff. So that's a lot of, you know, we talk about dongles or whatever they're called, and that adds up after a while. So I agree with Jane. I wouldn't be in support of either one of these. I don't agree with going to a Mac. I also think that we talk a lot about accommodation, and I think when you come to us and you say that the high school is 60 to 40%, and that's not even all of them. I would love to know what all staff means, because I think elementary is reporting they want MacBooks, but it doesn't look like that's necessarily what our older, what they need in these secondary. So I really would rather have a better understanding of what they really want, because yeah. I guess I would say I'm more of a PC girl. So, and I think that applies more on more platforms too. Just in terms of, I mean, education's its own little area, but most places that I've worked with, most of you're gonna be using a PC.
Addressing your timeline, in the past, we've taken all of our employees, we've gone out and done the refresh, and it's taken 2 to 3 weeks to do all of
That's
the
what I-
schools working all day. Now, with the Mac, at that point, at that time, all of our Macs are Intel based, so you can't do the secure wipe like the new Apple chips are. So we were loading the new OS on the Macs. So that took some time. If we go all Mac, it will cut down our time significantly, because we could just do the erase and it's ready to go to the teacher and they log in.
How many people is that for 2 weeks?
8 of us. If everybody's working, you know, it's about 8.
Just real quick, I think if we go with recommendation 1 without that deadline of a full shift in 2028 and keep it somewhat flexible. Really what you're doing though is you're still creating more of that MacBook usage, because if we have the new teachers receiving those, eventually we're going to have more of a MacBook versus the PC usage anyway. I think some of that's just going to happen naturally, and it still allows for the flexibility for the people who have the comfort level and so forth. So I think at the end of the day, that makes sense with removing that date.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I would agree removing the date, but I would also remove the new teachers receive a MacBook. I would say if our teachers that are here have a choice, our new teachers should have a choice too.
Because that's kind of forcing your hand.
Yeah, I think that one is that when we get a teacher that shows up in August, we can't order them a device.
Yeah.
So right now, they get the device that the teacher before them had, right? So like if I came in for like a Hale math teacher that came from Lane, I would get a Mac. Because I'm replacing that person on the EAF. So our new teachers really aren't gonna, the new teacher choice will essentially be eliminated.
Is that really how it works? Like when the teacher leaves, it doesn't go into a pool of devices and then those devices are assigned out based off of need?
No, yeah, what'll happen is if a new teacher comes into an elementary, they're gonna get a Mac. If a new teacher comes into the high schools, they're gonna get a
What
PC.
we're saying though is if
And
a
it's-
teacher leaves, you're saying that if a science teacher leaves at Hale, you don't just say, oh, these are all the resignations. I got all my PCs together. We have it centralized in IT. Now we're gonna assign them out. You're saying that if I become the science teacher that came after Mr. Smith, I'm being assigned that one.
No, that's not the case.
Okay.
They're assigned the same type of device.
Okay.
So, but the issue with having new teachers choose is we want to place this order as soon as possible, so we have the computers. And we don't know what teachers are going to want. So that's why we're saying new teachers are going to get a Mac. So those that are here that we know are staying, we know how many teachers there are going to be. So it's real easy. We do the survey. So those that want a PC would get the PC. Those that want a Mac would keep the Mac. And then basically the difference, if we know there's 710 teachers and we got 5, the rest of them would be ordered Mac and they get a Mac.
So
Which goes to your point where most businesses, you get assigned a device and that's what you get.
I actually haven't had that. They've generally given us an option.
I've never.
There are some out there. Yep. Yeah, there definitely are some out there. I mean,
Yeah, there are. I've never had it.
Oh, you can have this.
So we would have to be, that's essentially committing financially at that point,
Yeah.
because you're ordering the 200 some odd, whatever it's gonna be devices. Now, I mean, or is it more than that? Cause you said social workers, EAs, like.
yeah, there's, let's see, who's all on. It's basically anybody that's on a teacher contract. So we got the list from HR. So there's teachers, guidance counselors, innovation coaches, psychologists, speech language path, occupational therapies, physical therapists, building subs, school nurses, and social workers. So those are all on teacher contracts. So we got all the numbers divided out by school.
So we're not worrying about the other, like they're getting older devices pushed down to them, and that's happening for EAs, people not on the list.
The EAs at this time, we could possibly give them the option. We'd have to see what we have available. But we should have enough based on the numbers that where we could give them a choice as well.
What do school offices use?
The offices, most of the secretaries, or actually all the secretaries have PCs. The administrators are given a choice whether they want a Mac or a PC.
And that would continue?
Probably. But I'm
The
guessing
secretary
more of them
would
would
still
move
have
to the Mac.
PCs?
Secretaries would still have a PC.
And that would continue.
I would believe so, yes.
I mean,
Because they have desktops, they don't have laptops.
right,
So,
right. We have to make our information, we have to basically say, are we okay with buying more Macs or not? We have to say that, because they have to make the decision. I know we're taking action on it next Monday. But like, what we say here is gonna determine what shows up on that Monday, so that we have to say like, yes, we're okay with getting the Macs for the new teachers, or no, we're not.
No.
No, really not.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, that's for new teachers,
4 new teachers?
4 new teachers.
For new teachers?
It's a no-go. So what we'd look at, like, I'm fine if there's a teacher we currently have, it's like, I want a Mac, cool, get them a Mac. But I think the purchases that you guys are gonna make, the majority of us are not comfortable putting that financial forward, saying that new teachers coming in are just gonna get given a Mac without anything more.
That should also be new secondary teachers then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all new elementary teachers are getting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just wanted to clarify.
We're not looking to change the elementary. It's been like that for that amount of
Yeah,
time.
that's what's been.
Okay,
And we're not looking to shift that at
I
all.
just want to clarify.
But yeah, secondary people who aren't using Macs right now, who don't want to use Macs, then they don't get a Mac, they get a PC. And then new teachers moving in. So the question then is like, do you get some of each then, or how do you address that if you don't know what the new teachers are gonna get? You just use what we have in stock?
Yeah, probably what I would do is I would base the numbers. So once we get our responses back on what they want. And I know how many teachers are at elementary.
Sure.
And then we're not giving them, they're just gonna get the max, but at the secondary, I can take a look and I know how many. So let's say there's 400 teachers and we get 200 responses with the choices and the rest are new, we would order PCs.
Sure.
To do that.
Okay.
Now, we could decide to do a 75-25 split. We're kind of taking a chance. There's probably going to be some new teachers, especially younger teachers. And I know a lot of them start out with Mac, not all of them, but a lot of the education, they work with Macs and they're familiar with Macs. So we could do it up to a point and kind of first come, first serve. And once, if we do a 75-25 split of like what's new to start with, that would be another option, or we could just order 100% PC.
Sure. Okay. Additional questions or comments from the board? I believe that's the direction that we've given, unless anyone wants to say anything further, but I think that's where we're at. And so I guess whatever the recommendation coming forward on next week, Monday, we'll look at that, and then as long as we're comfortable with it. Mr. Becker.
I was just gonna say, I like the idea of a split, just because I don't like the idea of forcing one to one or the other. I was a thumbs up just for the sake of a little bit of predictability and making sure that it's ordered and you're not ordering under the gun at the last minute. But if we can solve that issue by splitting it, then I kind of prefer that as well.
What kind of split do you think? 75-25, 50-50?
I would go with whatever the teacher breakdown is, because in the one school was
60-30 or whatever that was.
right, like in one school it was 60-30 and that one was like 90%.
Look at how many,
average
where the openings are,
Yeah.
right? So if you have a lot of openings in elementary, your percent fill rate is gonna be more Mac. If you have more openings in secondary, then the percent fill rate is gonna be more PC. So that's how I would look at it. Look at what we have for openings, who we don't know, who are question marks for coming in. And if it's more in one, then maybe skew a little more in that direction based on the percent feedback that you're getting. From, or, when you ask people from that sign up survey, base your percentage off of that.
I mean, I kind of know the answer to this, I think, but how long in advance would we need to know before placing it? I guess what I'm saying is when we hire somebody, is it possible to get their preference and then place an order? Like, do we need to order them all in advance, or is there a discount because we're doing it that way? I guess, how does that work?
No, we buy in with the Max, we buy in 5 packs. So there is like a $20 discount and that's built into that price with the PC. I believe there might be a little bit of a discount ordering a larger quantity. I can find that out. It's not a huge discount,
It's part of me was thinking as people are hired.
Yeah.
That question.
Keep a
Like,
list and,
what is your
yeah.
preference?
But
Yeah.
time wise, and then the other issue becomes is who knows when the new model is going to come out and the next one gets discontinued. And then all of a sudden we got all, different models, we'll have 2, 3, 4, 5 different teacher models because we order at different times.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And I figured there'd be some barriers. Just wanted to ask.
Anything else? The only thing I would say is I work remotely 100%. And I have PC and the IT at the state, they do everything remotely. So I know there must be a way to do that on PCs. And maybe it's just not something you're familiar with or your staff is familiar with. Not saying you have to take a bunch of classes to figure all this out, but I think some of that stuff might be possible to help to reduce the amount of time that you guys are spending on doing refreshes and software updates and things like that. It should be able to be done remotely nowadays with PCs as well. So with that, I look for, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Presenting.
A lot, we know.
I know it's a lot. I appreciate you taking our feedback
Thank you.
into account.
Yep.
So
And it's all like Russian.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, yeah.
it's seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? We adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone.